When Elena Vance walked into her mafia boss husband's office after 10 months of silence, she carried two things: divorce papers and a 7-month pregnancy he knew nothing about. The man who commanded empires with a single word froze at the sight of her swollen belly. The woman who once loved him desperately now wanted only to escape. But in a world where loyalty is currency and betrayal means death, walking away isn't just difficult, it's dangerous. If you want to see how this story of secrets, survival, and second chances unfolds, stay until the end, hit that like button, and comment your city below so I can see how far this tale travels. Mo. The rain hammered against the windows of Volkov Tower like accusations, each drop a reminder of all the things Elena Vance had tried to forget. She stood in the marble lobby, water pooling at her feet, one hand pressed against her rounded belly and the other clutching a manila envelope that felt heavier than it should. 7 months pregnant and terrified, she'd rehearsed this moment 1,000 times during sleepless nights in cheap motel rooms across 3 states. None of those rehearsals had prepared her for the reality of coming back. Mrs. Volkov. The security guard's voice was carefully neutral, but his eyes widened as they traveled from her face to her stomach. Recognition and shock warred across his features. We weren't informed you'd be returning." "I'm not returning," Elena said quietly, her voice steadier than she felt. "I just need to see my husband. It won't take long." The guard reached for his radio, but Elena stepped forward, desperation sharpening her tone. "Please, Marcus, just let me go up. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." Marcus had worked security at Volkov Tower for 3 years. He'd seen Elena dozens of times, had watched her transform from the nervous bride who jumped at shadows to the poised woman who'd learned to navigate her husband's dangerous world with grace. The woman standing before him now looked like neither of those versions. She looked hunted. "He's been—" Marcus hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. "He's different since you left, ma'am. Colder. You should be careful." Elena's laugh was bitter. "I've been careful for 10 months, Marcus. Look where it got me." She didn't wait for him to respond, just walked past the security desk toward the private elevator that would take her to the top floor, to Adrian's domain. The elevator doors closed with a soft chime that sounded unnaturally loud in the quiet lobby. As the car began its ascent, Elena caught her reflection in the polished metal doors. She barely recognized herself. Gone was the elegant wardrobe Adrian had once insisted on, replaced by a simple black dress that strained across her belly. Her honey blonde hair, once professionally styled every week, now hung in a simple braid over one shoulder. Dark circles shadowed her green eyes, testament to months of running, hiding, and looking over her shoulder at every unfamiliar sound. But it was her expression that had changed the most. The innocence that had first attracted Adrian, that had made him believe he could keep something pure in his tainted world, had been replaced by a wariness that went bone deep. The elevator climbed higher, and with each floor, Elena's heart beat faster. She placed a hand on her stomach, feeling the baby shift beneath her palm. Their baby. The child Adrian didn't know existed, conceived during one of their last nights together before everything fell apart, before she'd discovered the truth that had sent her running. Floor 35. 40. 45. The numbers climbed and Elena's breathing became shallow. She could still turn back. She could get off on any floor, take the stairs down, disappear again into the anonymous safety of obscurity. Adrian had resources, but the world was big, and if she was careful enough, smart enough, she could stay hidden. But the baby kicked again, harder this time, and Elena knew she was lying to herself. She'd been lying for months, pretending she could do this alone, that she didn't need help, that the nightmares would eventually stop. They hadn't stopped. They'd only gotten worse. The elevator chimed its arrival at the penthouse level, and the doors slid open to reveal the executive floor of Volkov Tower. Even at 7 in the evening, the office hummed with activity. People in expensive suits hurried past with tablets and file folders, their conversations conducted in the careful undertones of those who knew that walls had ears and loose lips could be fatal. None of them noticed Elena at first. She'd become a ghost in this building. Her very existence erased the moment she'd vanished. But as she walked toward the massive mahogany doors at the end of the hall, doors that led to Adrian's office, heads began to turn. The whispers started immediately. "Is that... I thought she was..." Someone needs to tell Mr. Volkov. Jesus, is she pregnant? Elena kept walking, her spine straight despite the weight of their stares. She'd learned in her year as Adrian Volkov's wife that showing weakness in this world was an invitation for predators. These people respected strength, feared power, and despised vulnerability. She would give them nothing to despise. Adrian's personal assistant, Victoria Chen, stood from her desk as Elena approached. Victoria was beautiful, brilliant, and utterly loyal to Adrian, which meant she viewed Elena with the same suspicion she'd reserved for a potential threat. Mrs. Volkov. Victoria's tone was ice-wrapped in silk. This is unexpected. I need to see Adrian. Mr. Volkov is in a meeting. If you'd like to schedule an appointment, Victoria. Elena's voice cut through the polite fiction like a knife. I've been gone for 10 months. I'm 7 months pregnant with his child. I don't need an appointment. I need 5 minutes of his time, and then I'll be gone. Permanently. Something flickered in Victoria's eyes. Surprise, maybe, or calculation. Her gaze dropped to Elena's belly, then back to her face. For a moment, Elena thought she might actually call security. Then Victoria reached for her phone. Mr. Volkov, I apologize for the interruption, but there's someone here who needs to see you. It's urgent. Elena couldn't hear Adrian's response, but Victoria's expression tightened. Sir, I really think you should. Yes, sir, I understand, but... She paused, then said carefully, It's your wife, sir. The silence that followed was deafening. Victoria set down the phone slowly. He'll see you now. Elena's hand trembled as she reached for the door handle. This was it, the moment she'd been dreading and preparing for in equal measure. Behind these doors was the man she'd loved desperately, feared quietly, and left without explanation. The man whose world was violence wrapped in expensive suits, whose enemies were numerous and ruthless, whose love had been the most terrifying and exhilarating thing she'd ever experienced. The man who didn't know he was about to become a father. She pushed open the door. Adrian's office was exactly as she remembered, a monument to power and control. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, the lights below glittering like scattered diamonds. Dark wood furniture, leather chairs, and abstract art, worth more than most people earned in a lifetime, created an atmosphere of refined intimidation. And behind the massive desk, silhouetted against the city lights, sat Adrian Volkov. He didn't look up immediately. He was reading something on his tablet, his posture radiating the kind of casual authority that came from a lifetime of being obeyed without question. Dark hair, cut short and precise. Strong jaw, clean-shaven. Shoulders broad enough to carry an empire built on fear and loyalty. You have 2 minutes to explain why you thought interrupting my meeting was worth... He looked up. The tablet slipped from his fingers, clattering against the desk. For a moment, one perfect frozen moment, Adrian Volkov, the man who'd built a criminal empire before his 35th birthday, the man who'd eliminated rivals with cold efficiency, the man who never showed weakness, looked utterly human. His eyes, dark as midnight, locked onto Elena's face first. She watched emotions cascade across his features too quickly to name. Shock, disbelief, anger, something that might have been pain. Then his gaze dropped, traveling down her body until it reached her swollen belly. He stood abruptly, the chair rolling back with enough force to hit the credenza behind him. Elena! Her name sounded like a prayer and a curse all at once. Hello, Adrian? Her voice was steady, which felt like a miracle given that her entire body was shaking. I'm sorry to interrupt. This won't take long. Won't take... He circled the desk with the fluid grace of a predator, closing the distance between them in 3 long strides. You've been gone for 10 months. 10 months, Elena. No note, no phone call, no explanation. I had people searching 3 continents for you. I thought you were dead. His voice never rose, but the fury in it was palpable. Elena had forgotten how terrifying Adrian could be when he was angry, not because he shouted or threatened, but because his rage was cold, controlled, and absolute. I needed to leave, she said simply. You needed... He stopped, jaw clenching. His eyes dropped to her belly again, and this time they stayed there. How far along? 7 months. She watched him do the math, saw the exact moment he realized what that meant. The baby had been conceived before she left. She'd known she was pregnant when she'd walked out of his life without a backward glance. You knew. The words were barely above a whisper. You were carrying my child, and you left. Yes. Why? It was the question Elena had been dreading, the one she'd known he would ask but had no safe answer for. Because the truth was dangerous, not just for her, but for everyone in this room. The truth was the reason she'd run in the first place. The reason she'd spent 10 months looking over her shoulder. The reason she'd nearly starved rather than use any of the money Adrian had given her access to. The truth would start a war. I can't tell you that, she said instead. Adrian's laugh was harsh. Can't or won't? Does it matter? Yes. He moved closer and Elena forced herself not to step back. Running now would show weakness, and with Adrian, weakness was blood in the water. It matters, Elena. Everything about this matters. You disappeared, you took my child, and you ran. I deserve to know why. You deserve a lot of things, Adrian. Explanations aren't one of them. His hand shot out, not threatening, but desperate, fingers closing around her wrist with gentle pressure. The touch sent electricity through her system, muscle memory and longing warring with fear and self-preservation. Don't, he said, and for the first time his voice cracked. Don't do this. Don't come back after all this time just to be cruel. If you wanted to hurt me, Elena, you succeeded. You don't need to twist the knife. Elena looked down at his hand on her wrist, at the familiar calluses and scars that told stories he'd never fully shared. She traced those hands in the dark, had felt them gentle on her skin and violent against others. Those hands had built empires and destroyed enemies. Those hands had made her feel safe in a world where safety was an illusion. Those hands had never known they'd created life. I'm not here to hurt you, she said quietly. I'm here to end this. Properly. Legally. She pulled the manila envelope from her bag with her free hand and held it out to him. Adrian's eyes dropped to the envelope, and understanding dawned across his features like a storm rolling in. No. He released her wrist, took a step back. Absolutely not. Adrian? No, Elena. I don't care what you're about to say. What reasons you think you have. The answer is no. You don't even know what I'm asking. You're asking for a divorce. His voice was flat, emotionless. The tone he used when making decisions that would ruin lives. You're asking me to sign papers that say our marriage meant nothing, that you have the right to take my child and walk away. I can see it on your face, Elena. You think I'm going to just let you go. Elena felt tears prick at her eyes, but refused to let them fall. It's not about letting me go. The marriage is already over, Adrian. I left 10 months ago. I'm just making it official. Why now? He gestured to her stomach. Why come back now when you're 7 months pregnant? Why not wait until after the baby is born? Why not just disappear completely and pretend I never existed? Because she'd run out of money. Because the nightmares had gotten so bad she couldn't sleep. Because she was terrified of giving birth alone in some anonymous hospital where no one would know to call if something went wrong. Because despite everything, despite the danger, the fear, the very real threat to her life, some part of her still believed Adrian deserved to know he was going to be a father. But she couldn't say any of that, couldn't admit that she was weak, that she'd failed at the one thing she'd promised herself she'd do, stay away and keep their baby safe. I need this to be over, she said instead. The marriage, the connection to your world, all of it. I need a clean break, Adrian, for both of us. There is no clean break from me. He said it like a fact, immutable and eternal. You should know that by now. I don't let go of what's mine, Elena. I never have. I'm not yours. Not anymore. Sign the papers, Adrian, please. And if I refuse? Elena had prepared for this. She'd known Adrian wouldn't make this easy, that his pride and possessiveness would fight against letting her go. But she'd also done her research, had consulted with lawyers in 3 different states using fake names and cash payments. Then we go to court, she said. We've been separated for 10 months. I file for irreconcilable differences. It takes longer, costs more, and drags both our names through public proceedings. But it ends the same way, with the marriage dissolved and me gone from your life. You think a court will let you take my child? Adrian's smile was sharp enough to cut. You think I don't have judges, lawyers, and politicians who owe me favors? You think I won't use every resource at my disposal to keep you here? I think you could, Elena admitted. I think you could make my life hell, tie this up in legal proceedings for years, use your money and influence to take everything from me, but I also think you won't. Why wouldn't I? Because that's not who you are. She stepped closer, close enough to see the faint scar above his left eyebrow, the one he'd gotten in a fight when he was 17. Close enough to smell his cologne, cedar and smoke and something uniquely Adrian. You're ruthless, Adrian. You're dangerous. But you're not petty. And fighting over this in court would be petty. For a long moment, Adrian just looked at her. Really looked at her, the way he used to before everything fell apart, like she was a puzzle he was determined to solve, a code he needed to crack. What happened to you? He asked finally. What happened to the woman I married? You did, Elena said simply. Your world did. I can't. She broke off, fighting for control. This life you lead, Adrian, it's not sustainable. Not for people like me. I'm not strong enough for it. You're stronger than you think. I'm pregnant and terrified and standing in the office of a man who could end me with a phone call. Don't mistake desperation for strength. Adrian flinched like she'd struck him. I would never hurt you. Not directly, but your enemies would. Your world would. It already tried to. The words slipped out before Elena could stop them, and she watched Adrian's expression shift from hurt to sharp, dangerous focus. What do you mean, it tried to? Elena cursed internally. She'd revealed too much. Let her guard down for just a moment. Nothing. Forget I said anything. Elena. Adrian's voice dropped to the tone that had made grown men confess to crimes they'd planned in secret. What happened? It doesn't matter now. I handled it. By running. By surviving. Tell me. He moved closer, and this time Elena did step back. But Adrian followed, matching her retreat step for step until her back hit the door and there was nowhere left to go. He braced his hands on either side of her head, caging her in without touching her. Tell me who threatened you. Tell me who made you so afraid that you ran while carrying my child. Tell me, Elena, so I can end them. His proximity was overwhelming. Elena could feel the heat radiating from his body, could see the pulse jumping in his throat, could smell the familiar scent that had once meant safety and home. The baby kicked, as if sensing its father's nearness, and Elena gasped. Adrian's eyes widened. Was that? Yes. Elena's hand moved to her belly instinctively. The baby. She's active today. She? Adrian's voice cracked on the word. We're having a daughter. Elena hadn't meant to tell him, hadn't meant to share anything beyond the bare minimum necessary to end the marriage and disappear. But standing here, trapped between Adrian's arms and the door, she found she couldn't lie. Yes, a girl. Something raw and unguarded crossed Adrian's face. His hand moved, hesitant, the first time Elena had ever seen him uncertain about anything, and hovered over her belly. May I? Elena knew she should say no, knew that allowing this intimacy would complicate everything, would make it harder to walk away. But the hopeful vulnerability in Adrian's expression shattered something inside her. Okay. Adrian's palm settled gently over her stomach, and the baby immediately kicked against his hand. Elena watched emotions cascade across his face, wonder, joy, fear, love, things she'd rarely seen from the controlled, careful man she'd married. Hello, little one, he murmured. I'm your father. Tears finally broke free from Elena's control, sliding down her cheeks unbidden. This was what she'd run from. Not the danger, not the violence, but this. The terrible, beautiful possibility of having a family with Adrian Volkov. The dream that could never survive the reality of his world. Adrian, please, her voice broke. Please don't make this harder than it has to be. Sign the papers. Let me go. Give our daughter a chance at a normal life. A life without her father? A life without the danger that follows you everywhere you go. Adrian's hand remained on her belly, but his eyes met hers with an intensity that stole her breath. What if I could give you both? Safety and me. What if I could prove to you that I can keep you both protected? You can't. No one can. That's the problem, Adrian. Your enemies will be dealt with. There will always be more. There will always be someone willing to hurt the people you love to get to you. That's the price of the empire you've built. Then I'll tear it down. He said it simply, as if destroying everything he'd spent his life building was a minor inconvenience. If that's what it takes to keep you and our daughter safe, I'll burn it all to the ground. You don't mean that, don't I? Test me, Elena. Stay. Give me 30 days to prove I can change, that I can be the man you and our daughter deserve. 30 days. And if I fail, I'll sign whatever papers you want and let you walk away. But if I succeed, if I can show you that we can have a life together that's safe and real, then you give us another chance. Elena stared at him, searching for the deception, the manipulation she'd learned to expect from people in Adrian's world. But all she saw was desperate sincerity and something that looked dangerously like hope. Why 30 days? Because that's how long it will take for the divorce to be processed anyway. Legal requirement for marriages of our duration. 30 days of mandatory separation before the courts will finalize anything. Adrian's smile was grim. I have good lawyers, Elena. You're not the only one who did research. Elena's heart sank. She'd hoped to avoid this, to make the break clean and quick. But if the law required 30 days regardless, where would I stay? Here. The penthouse is yours if you want it. Or I'll get you an apartment anywhere in the city. Your choice. And you expect me to just, what, play house? Pretend the last 10 months didn't happen? I expect you to let me take care of you. Adrian's hand moved from her belly to her face, cupping her cheek with devastating gentleness. You're exhausted, Elena. You've been running and hiding for months. You're 7 months pregnant and clearly not eating enough. Let me help. Let me make sure you and our daughter are safe and healthy. That's all I'm asking. You're asking for a second chance. Yes. He didn't deny it. I'm asking for the opportunity to prove I can be better. That we can be better. Is that so unreasonable? Every instinct Elena had screamed at her to say no, to push past him and run again. But she was so tired of running, tired of cheap motels and constant fear, tired of being alone with her terror, carrying the weight of her secrets and her pregnancy without help. And despite everything, some traitorous part of her heart still believed in the man Adrian could be, when he wasn't being the ruthless crime boss the world knew. She'd seen glimpses of that man in their brief marriage, moments of softness and genuine care that had made her fall in love with him in the first place. Maybe he was right. Maybe 30 days wouldn't change anything, and she'd leave exactly as planned. But at least she'd be warm and fed and safe while she waited. At least their daughter would have a month of security before being born into uncertainty. 30 days, she heard herself say. But I have conditions. Adrian's expression shifted, became businesslike. Name them. Separate bedrooms. This isn't a reconciliation, it's a waiting period. I need my own space. Agreed. You don't pressure me. No manipulation, no using your influence to trap me here. When the 30 days are up, if I want to leave, you let me go. You sign the papers, you pay what child support the courts require, but you don't fight me for custody. Adrian's jaw tightened, but he nodded. If that's what you truly want at the end of 30 days, yes. I agree. And the most important condition, you tell me the truth about everything. Your business, your enemies, the threats against us. No more secrets, Adrian. If I'm going to be here, I need to know exactly what danger I'm living in. That one made him hesitate. Elena could see the war playing out behind his eyes, the instinct to protect her from the ugliness of his world, warring against the knowledge that ignorance had driven her away once already. All right, he said finally. Truth, complete honesty. Starting now. Starting now, Elena echoed. Adrian's hand dropped from her face, and he stepped back, giving her space to breathe. The loss of his proximity felt like cold water, shocking and unwelcome. Elena pushed away from the door, putting distance between them before she could do something stupid like lean into his touch. I'll have Victoria prepare the guest suite, Adrian said, already moving toward his phone. It's been maintained since you left. Your clothes are still in the closet. I'm not wearing designer clothes you paid for, Adrian. He paused, looked at her simple black dress with new eyes. You've been living on nothing. I've been living carefully. There's a difference. How? The question was sharp. How did you survive for 10 months with no money, no resources? I know you didn't access any of our accounts. I was monitoring them daily, hoping you'd make a mistake so I could find you. Elena's laugh was bitter. I worked, waitressed mostly, Cash under the table at places that don't ask questions. Slept in my car for a while until I couldn't fit behind the steering wheel anymore. Then motels that rent by the week and don't care about fake names. She watched Adrian's face pale, watched his hands clench into fists. You were homeless. Pregnant with my child and homeless. I was safe. That's what mattered. Safe from what, Elena? His voice rose for the first time, frustration and anger bleeding through his control. What could possibly be so dangerous that living in your car was preferable to staying with me? I told you, I can't. You said you'd be honest, starting now. Adrian moved toward her again, and this time there was nothing gentle in his approach. He was every inch the dangerous man who'd built an empire on violence and intimidation. So be honest. Tell me what made you run. Tell me who threatened you. Give me names, Elena, so I can make them regret ever making you afraid. The baby kicked hard, as if protesting the tension crackling through the air. Elena wrapped both arms around her belly protectively. You want the truth? She met Adrian's eyes without flinching. Fine. Someone in your organization wanted me dead. Someone close enough to know our routines, our security, our safe houses. Someone who knew exactly how to get to me when you weren't looking. Adrian went very still. When? 10 months ago, about a week before I left. Tell me everything. So Elena did. She told him about the late-night phone call to her burner phone, the one she'd kept hidden even from Adrian, her one link to her life before their marriage. She told him about the raspy, disguised voice that had detailed exactly how they planned to kill her. Not quick, not merciful. A message written in blood and pain, designed to break Adrian Volkov by destroying the one thing he'd ever admitted to loving. She told him about the panic, the fear, the desperate realization that she couldn't tell Adrian without knowing who to trust. She told him about discovering she was pregnant 2 days later, about the impossible choice between staying and hoping Adrian could protect them both, or running and hoping distance would keep her alive long enough to give birth. By the time she finished, Adrian's face was carved from stone, his eyes burning with cold fury. You should have told me. His voice was deadly quiet. You should have trusted me to handle it. How could I? When I didn't know who the threat was coming from? When it could have been anyone in your inner circle? When telling you might have just accelerated their timeline? Elena's voice shook. I did what I had to do to survive, Adrian, to keep our baby safe. Don't you dare stand there and judge me for it. Adrian's phone buzzed, but he ignored it. It buzzed again, more insistently. Answer it, Elena said. I'm not going anywhere. Not for 30 days, anyway. Adrian pulled out his phone, glanced at the screen, and his expression darkened further. I need to take this. It's important. Then take it. He answered, his eyes never leaving Elena's face. This better be critical. What? When? What? Lock down the building. No one in or out without my explicit approval. I don't care if they have clearance, Marcus. No exceptions. Good. I'll be down in 10 minutes. He ended the call and slid the phone back into his pocket with measured precision. What's wrong? Elena asked, though she already suspected. Building security flagged an anomaly. Someone tried to access the executive floor using credentials that were deactivated months ago. Your credentials, Elena. Ice slid down Elena's spine. That's impossible. I've had my keycard with me the whole time. I know, which means someone cloned it. Someone who wanted to know the exact moment you came back. They know I'm here. Yes. Adrian's expression was grim. Which means whatever threat you ran from 10 months ago, it's not over. And now we have less than 30 days to figure out who wants you dead before they try again. The baby kicked one more time, hard enough to make Elena gasp. And standing in Adrian Volkov's office, surrounded by the gleaming monuments to his power and influence, she realized with terrible clarity that coming back had been a mistake. She'd thought she was ending one chapter of her life. Instead, she'd just walked straight into the most dangerous chapter yet. Adrian's hand found the small of Elena's back, guiding her away from the door with a pressure that was gentle but absolutely unyielding. We're leaving, now. Wait, my things are replaceable. He was already moving, his other hand pulling out his phone to fire off rapid instructions. Victoria, clear my schedule for the rest of the week. Divert all calls to Mikhail. Tell him it's priority alpha. I don't care what meeting it is, cancel it, because my wife is in danger and nothing else matters. Are we clear? Elena heard Victoria's crisp acknowledgement even through the phone, professional as always despite what must have been shock at Adrian's tone. In the years she'd known him, she'd never heard him sound quite like this. Controlled, but barely. His usual icy composure fractured by something that looked dangerously like fear. Adrian, slow down. You're overreacting. Someone cloned your credentials and tried to access this floor while you were in my office. He pulled open a panel in the wall that Elena had never noticed, revealing a private elevator. That's not a coincidence. That's surveillance. They've been watching, waiting for you to surface. And now that you have, they know exactly where you are. The elevator doors slid open, and Adrian ushered her inside. The space was smaller than the main elevator, more intimate, and Elena found herself pressed close to Adrian's side as he keyed in a code on the security panel. The doors closed, and the elevator began to descend with a smooth hum that did nothing to calm her racing heart. Where are we going? Somewhere safe. Somewhere no one knows about, except me and two people I'd trust with my life. Adrian's jaw was tight, his eyes fixed on the descending floor numbers. I have a property outside the city, private, secure, off the books. We'll stay there until I can figure out who's behind this. You're taking me to a safe house. Elena's laugh was shaky. How many times did I beg you to tell me about your contingency plans when we were married? You always said it was better if I didn't know. I was wrong about a lot of things. The elevator stopped, but not at the lobby, at the parking garage 2 levels below ground. I thought keeping you ignorant would keep you safe. All it did was make you an easier target. The garage was dimly lit and nearly empty at this hour. Adrian led her to a black SUV with tinted windows, one of several identical vehicles parked in the reserved section. He opened the passenger door and waited until she was settled before circling around to the driver's side. Shouldn't we have security with us? Elena asked as Adrian started the engine. Guards, or the fewer people who know where we're going, the better. Right now, I don't know who I can trust. He pulled out of the parking spot with controlled speed, heading for the exit ramp. The person who threatened you 10 months ago knew our routines, our security protocols. That kind of information doesn't come from the outside. It comes from someone on the inside. Elena's hand moved to her belly again, a protective gesture that was becoming habitual. The baby shifted beneath her palm, restless. You think it's someone in your inner circle. I think it's someone close enough to have access to information they shouldn't, close enough to know about you, about us, about our vulnerabilities. Adrian's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Tell me again exactly what the caller said. Word for word, if you can remember. Elena closed her eyes, forcing herself back to that night 10 months ago. She tried so hard to forget the raspy voice, the specific threats, the terrible detail in their description of how they planned to hurt her. But memory had carved it deep, a scar that wouldn't fade. They said that loving you was my death sentence, that you'd built your empire on blood, and eventually it would cost you everything you cared about. Her voice was steady, clinical, as if she were describing something that had happened to someone else. They said I was the crack in your armor, the weakness that would bring you down, and they were going to exploit that weakness in the most public, painful way possible. Adrian's expression darkened with each word. Go on. They had details about my routine, the yoga class I took Tuesday mornings, the coffee shop where I met Sarah for lunch on Thursdays, the route I walked when I needed to clear my head. Elena's breath caught. They knew things, Adrian, private things, like the birthmark on my left hip, like the fact that I sleep on my right side. Things only someone very close would know. Or someone with access to our home security footage. Adrian's tone was grim. I'll need to audit every system, every person who had clearance to our residence. The list is small, but not small enough. They'd exited the downtown area now, heading west toward the suburbs and then beyond. Elena watched the city lights fade in the side mirror, replaced by darkness punctuated by occasional street lamps. She should feel relieved to be putting distance between herself and whoever had tried to access the building. Instead, she felt exposed, vulnerable in a way that had nothing to do with physical danger. I never wanted to come back, she said quietly. I had a plan. Stay hidden until the baby was born, then disappear completely. New name, new city, new life. You would never have known about her. Don't. Adrian's voice was sharp enough to cut. Don't tell me you were planning to erase me from my daughter's life. Not right now, Elena. Not when I'm trying very hard not to think about all the months I've already missed. I was trying to keep her safe. By denying her a father, by raising her alone with no resources, no support, no backup if something went wrong. He glanced at her, and the pain in his eyes was almost physical. What would have happened if there were complications during delivery? What if you'd needed emergency surgery, or if the baby had needed specialized care? You would have been alone, Elena, completely alone. I would have managed. You would have suffered, and so would she. Adrian's attention returned to the road, but his hands were white-knuckled on the wheel. I understand why you ran. I even understand why you didn't trust me enough to come to me with the threat. But this, planning to cut me out permanently, that's not about safety. That's about punishment. Elena wanted to argue, to insist that her motives had been pure survival and nothing more. But there was truth in Adrian's words, a bitter truth she'd avoided acknowledging even to herself. Part of her had wanted him to hurt the way she'd hurt, had wanted him to feel the loss, the absence, the aching empty space where something precious should have been. Maybe, she admitted, maybe I wanted you to know what it felt like to lose something you couldn't control, something you couldn't fix with money or power or violence. Then congratulations, you succeeded. Adrian's smile was bleak. Every morning for 10 months, I woke up not knowing if you were alive or dead. Every lead that went nowhere, every dead end, every day that passed without answers, it was torture, Elena. The not knowing was worse than any physical pain I've ever experienced. You could have moved on, found someone else. Your world is full of women who would jump at the chance to be Mrs. Volkov. I don't want someone else. I want you. He said it simply, as if it were the most obvious truth in the world. I've always wanted you. From the moment you stumbled into that charity gala wearing a borrowed dress and looking like you wanted to be anywhere else, I wanted you. And that hasn't changed. 10 months of silence, a pregnancy I knew nothing about, divorce papers, none of it changes what I feel. Elena's throat tightened. This was the Adrian she'd fallen in love with, the one who hid beneath layers of calculated control and ruthless efficiency. The one who could be devastatingly honest about his emotions when he chose to be. The one who'd made her believe that maybe, just maybe, a man like him could build something real with a woman like her. Feelings aren't enough, she said. Not in your world. Love doesn't stop bullets, Adrian. It doesn't protect against people who see me as a liability or a tool to use against you. No, but I can. They were leaving the suburbs now, entering the rural darkness beyond the city limits. I can stop bullets. I can eliminate threats. I can burn down anyone who tries to hurt you or our daughter. I just need you to let me. That's what scares me. The burning down part. The violence you're so casual about. Elena turned in her seat to face him. You talk about eliminating people like you're discussing a business merger. Do you even hear yourself? I hear myself perfectly. And I know what I sound like. Adrian's profile was sharp in the dashboard lights. I've never pretended to be something I'm not, Elena. You knew what I was when you married me. A criminal, a killer, when necessary. Someone who operates in the shadows and solves problems with methods that would horrify most people. I knew it intellectually. That's different from watching it happen, from being close enough to see the blood on your hands. There's never been blood on my hands when I've touched you. That doesn't make it better, Adrian. It makes it worse. You can be gentle with me and then turn around and... She broke off, unable to finish the thought. And execute someone who betrayed me? And eliminate a rival who threatened my territory? And do all the dark, necessary things that keep my empire running? Adrian's voice was hard. Yes, I can. I do. And I won't apologize for it, because that violence, that ruthlessness, is what's kept me alive long enough to meet you. It's what's built the resources I'm using right now to keep you safe. You can't have one without the other, Elena. You can't have the protection without the predator. The truth of it settled between them like stone. Elena stared out at the darkness rushing past, one hand on her belly where their daughter rested, oblivious to the complicated legacy she'd been born into. A father who could be tender and terrifying in equal measure. A world where love and violence existed side by side, inseparable. I don't know if I can live with that, she said finally. Long term, I don't know if I'm strong enough to watch you be that person and still sleep next to you at night. Then we have 30 days to find out. Adrian turned off the main road onto a narrow lane that wound through dense woods. 30 days to see if we can build something that works. Something that acknowledges what I am, but doesn't let it destroy what we could be. The lane opened into a clearing, and Elena caught her breath. The house that stood before them was nothing like the ostentatious mansion they'd shared during their brief marriage. This was smaller, more intimate, a modern structure of glass and wood that seemed to grow organically from the surrounding forest. Lights glowed warmly through the windows, and smoke curled from a stone chimney. "Someone's here," Elena said, tensing. "Marcus and his wife, Sophia. They maintain the property for me. They're trustworthy. Marcus has been with me since we were teenagers, and Sophia knows how to be discreet." Adrian parked near the front entrance and turned off the engine. "They're expecting us. I texted while we were driving." "You trust them that much?" "With my life. And more importantly, with yours." He opened his door, then paused. "Wait here. Let me make sure everything's secure before you come inside." Elena watched him approach the house, saw the front door open before he could knock. A stocky man in his 30s emerged. Not the building security guard Marcus, she realized, but someone else who shared the name. Someone who clasped Adrian's hand with the familiarity of long friendship before gesturing him inside. She was alone in the car for less than 5 minutes, but it felt longer. The darkness pressed close around the vehicle, and every shadow seemed threatening. Elena found herself holding her breath, listening for sounds that didn't belong. Footsteps, voices, the click of a weapon being readied. Nothing came. Adrian reappeared in the doorway and beckoned her forward. Elena climbed out of the SUV carefully, her pregnant body awkward and unwieldy. The cold night air bit at her skin, and she hurried toward the warmth spilling from the open door. Inside, the house was even more beautiful than its exterior suggested. Exposed wooden beams soared overhead, and a wall of windows overlooked the dark forest beyond. A fire crackled in a massive stone fireplace, and comfortable furniture in earth tones created an atmosphere of rustic luxury. A woman emerged from what appeared to be a kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She was perhaps 40, with warm brown eyes and graying hair pulled back in a practical bun. Her smile was genuine as she approached Elena. "Mrs. Volkov, I'm Sophia. Welcome. You must be exhausted." "Just Elena, please." Elena accepted the woman's offered hand, grateful for the warmth in her grip. "And thank you for accommodating us on such short notice." "It's no trouble at all. We keep the house ready for Mr. Volkov's visits." Sophia's eyes dropped to Elena's belly, and her smile widened. "Congratulations on the baby. When are you due?" 2 months, give or take. "Then you need food and rest, in that order. Come, I've prepared the guest suite upstairs. Marcus can bring in your luggage." "Oh." Sophia's expression shifted to concern as she realized Elena had no luggage. "Well, I'm sure we can find you something comfortable to sleep in, and tomorrow we'll get you properly situated." Adrian appeared at Elena's elbow. "I'll show her upstairs, thank you, Sophia." The staircase was wide and modern, leading to a second floor that seemed to be mostly one large master suite. But Adrian guided Elena to a smaller room at the far end of the hall, a guest room decorated in soft grays and whites, with its own attached bathroom and a window overlooking the forest. "It's beautiful," Elena said, meaning it. The bed looked impossibly inviting, piled with pillows and covered in a down comforter that promised warmth and comfort. "There are clothes in the closet. Sophia keeps it stocked with various sizes for unexpected guests." Adrian moved to the dresser and pulled open a drawer. "Toiletries in the bathroom, extra blankets in here if you get cold. The door locks from the inside if you want privacy, and I'm right down the hall if you need anything." Elena sank onto the edge of the bed, suddenly overwhelmed by exhaustion that went bone deep. The adrenaline that had sustained her through the confrontation in Adrian's office, the tense car ride, the uncertainty of their situation, all of it drained away at once, leaving her feeling hollow and fragile. "Hey." Adrian was beside her in an instant, his hand on her shoulder. "What do you need? Water? Food? Should I call a doctor?" "I'm just tired." Elena looked up at him, this man who could command empires but looked genuinely frightened by her tears. "So tired, Adrian. I've been running for so long and I'm done." I can't do it anymore." "Then don't." He knelt before her, bringing his eyes level with hers. "You don't have to run anymore. You don't have to carry this alone. Let me help, Elena. Let me take some of the weight. I don't know how to trust you again. I know. But we have 30 days to figure it out." His hand moved to her belly, gentle and reverent. "And we have a pretty good reason to try." The baby kicked against his palm, and Adrian's expression transformed. Wonder and love and fierce protectiveness all warred for dominance on his features. Elena watched him fall in love with their daughter through a simple touch, and something cracked open in her chest, something she'd tried very hard to keep locked away. "Her name is Sophia Grace," she heard herself say. "I was going to name her Sophia Grace, after my grandmother." Adrian's eyes met hers, bright with emotion. "It's perfect." "I haven't decided on a middle name yet. I thought maybe—" Elena trailed off, then forced herself to continue. "Maybe you'd like to help choose it, when the time comes." "I would like that very much." Adrian stood slowly, releasing her reluctantly. "Get some rest. I'll have Sophia bring you food in an hour, and tomorrow we'll start figuring out who wants you dead and how to stop them." He was at the door when Elena called out to him. "Adrian?" He turned, waiting. "Thank you for not making me do this alone anymore." His smile was sad and soft and full of things he didn't say out loud. "You were never doing it alone, Elena. Even when you thought you were, I was looking for you, searching every city, following every lead, refusing to give up. You've never been alone. You just didn't know I was there." He left, closing the door quietly behind him. Elena sat on the bed for a long moment, processing everything that had happened in the past few hours. This morning she'd woken up in a cheap motel, determined to finalize her divorce and disappear. Now she was in a safe house, with the husband she'd fled, carrying his child, and about to spend 30 days trying to figure out if they could salvage something from the wreckage of their marriage. Her hand went to her belly again, and Sophia Grace kicked in response. "Your father is going to be the death of me," Elena whispered. "You know that, right? He's complicated and dangerous and absolutely impossible to walk away from." The baby kicked again, harder. "Yeah, I know. You like him already. Figures." A soft knock interrupted her one-sided conversation. Sophia entered, carrying a tray laden with soup, bread, and a pot of tea. The older woman set it on the bedside table with efficient care. "I wasn't sure what you'd be hungry for, so I made chicken soup. It's gentle on the stomach if you've been stressed." Sophia poured a cup of tea and handed it to Elena. "Chamomile, no caffeine, good for the baby and for sleep." "You're very kind. Thank you." "It's my pleasure, dear." Sophia settled into a chair near the window, apparently in no hurry to leave. "I hope you don't mind me saying, but you look like you could use a friend. Someone who's not Adrian Volkov and all his intensity." Elena laughed despite herself. "Is he always this intense?" "Always. Since the day I met him, which was about 15 years ago." Sophia's expression grew fond. "Marcus and Adrian grew up together in very difficult circumstances. When Adrian started building his enterprise, he brought Marcus with him. And when Marcus and I got married, Adrian gave us this house as a wedding present. He's been very good to us." "He inspires a lot of loyalty." "He inspires fear in his enemies and devotion in his friends. There's no middle ground with Adrian." Sophia studied Elena carefully. "But you already know that, don't you? You've seen both sides of him." "I've seen enough to know I should probably run in the opposite direction." "And yet you're here." "And yet I'm here." Elena sipped her tea, letting the warmth spread through her. "I'm not sure if that makes me brave or stupid. Maybe both. Maybe neither." Sophia rose and moved toward the door. "For what it's worth, I've known Adrian Volkov for a long time. I've seen him angry, ruthless, and absolutely terrifying when he needs to be. But I've also seen the way he looked at you in the few seconds before I left the room tonight. That man loves you, Elena. Completely, desperately, maybe even dangerously. The question isn't whether he cares, it's whether you can build a life with someone who loves that intensely while living the way he does." She left before Elena could respond, pulling the door closed behind her with a soft click. Elena ate mechanically, the soup warming her from the inside out, even though she barely tasted it. Her mind was racing, replaying the conversation with Adrian, the fear in his eyes when he'd learned about the threat, the gentleness in his touch when he'd felt their daughter kick, She'd spent 10 months convincing herself that leaving had been the right choice, the only choice. That Adrian's world was too dangerous, too violent, too fundamentally incompatible with the kind of life she wanted for herself and her child. But watching him tonight, seeing his pain, his determination, his fierce protectiveness, she wondered if maybe she'd been wrong. Not about the danger, which was all too real, but about whether that danger was insurmountable. Whether love could exist alongside violence. Whether a man like Adrian could change enough to make a life together possible. 30 days. She had 30 days to find out. Elena finished her meal, changed into the soft pajamas she found in the dresser, and climbed into bed. The mattress was heaven after months of cheap motel mattresses and car seats. She sank into the pillows with a sigh, her body finally relaxing for the first time in what felt like forever. Sleep should have come quickly. She was exhausted, emotionally drained, physically spent, but her mind wouldn't quiet, kept cycling through possibilities and threats and memories she'd tried hard to bury. Somewhere down the hall, Adrian was probably lying awake too, plotting strategy and assessing threats and planning how to protect her from an enemy they couldn't identify. It should have comforted her. Instead, it highlighted the fundamental problem with their relationship. Adrian's idea of love involved total control, complete protection, elimination of all threats. He wanted to wrap her in layers of security until nothing could touch her. But Elena had learned during their brief marriage that that kind of protection felt a lot like a prison. Beautiful, luxurious, but still confining. She needed freedom. He needed control. And their daughter needed parents who could find a way to compromise between those two extremes. The baby shifted, pressing against Elena's ribs in a way that was uncomfortable but oddly reassuring. Real, grounding. A reminder that this wasn't just about her and Adrian anymore. They'd created a life together, and that life deserved better than parents who couldn't figure out how to coexist peacefully. Elena placed both hands on her belly, feeling the small movements beneath her palms. "We're going to figure this out," she whispered. "Somehow, we're going to make this work. For you, Sophia Grace. Everything for you." The baby kicked one more time, then settled. Elena closed her eyes and focused on breathing, on letting go of the fear and tension that had been her constant companions for months. She was safe tonight. Adrian was down the hall. Marcus and Sophia were downstairs. The house was secure and off the books and unknown to whoever had threatened her. Tonight, she could rest. Tomorrow, they would start hunting the person who wanted her dead. Sleep finally claimed her, pulling her down into dreams that mixed memory and fear in equal measure. She was back in the mansion she'd shared with Adrian, but the rooms were dark and threatening. Someone was following her through the empty halls, getting closer with each step. She ran, but her pregnant body was slow, awkward. The footsteps gained on her. A hand grabbed her shoulder. Elena woke with a gasp, her heart pounding, sweat soaking through her pajamas. The room was dark except for moonlight filtering through the curtains. For a disorienting moment, she didn't know where she was. Then memory returned. The safe house. Adrian. 30 days. She was reaching for the lamp when she heard it, a soft sound from somewhere downstairs. Voices, low and urgent. She couldn't make out words, but the tone was clear. Something was wrong. Elena slipped out of bed, her bare feet silent on the wooden floor. She cracked open her door and listened. The voices were clearer now, coming from what sounded like the kitchen. Adrian's voice tight with controlled fury, Marcus responding in quick, sharp sentences. And beneath it all, a woman crying. Sophia. Elena moved into the hallway toward the stairs. She knew she should probably stay in her room, let Adrian handle whatever crisis had developed. But the sound of Sophia's distress pulled at her, made staying put impossible. The stairs were dark, but Elena navigated them carefully, one hand on the rail and one on her belly. The voices grew louder as she descended. "Can't be a coincidence. Not tonight of all nights." That was Adrian. "I know, boss, I know, but I don't understand how they found us. This place isn't in any database. It's not connected to you in any legal way." Marcus sounded frustrated and afraid. Unless one of us led them here." Adrian's voice was ice. "Unless the threat is closer than we thought." Elena reached the bottom of the stairs and moved toward the kitchen. She could see them now through the open doorway. Adrian standing rigid by the counter, Marcus pacing near the window, and Sophia sitting at the kitchen table with her face in her hands. "What's going on?" Elena's question made all three of them turn. Adrian crossed to her immediately. You should be upstairs, resting. I heard voices. Sophia was crying. What happened? There's been a development. Adrian's hand found her elbow, steadying her. Someone left a message at the front gate. A very specific message. What kind of message? It was Marcus who answered, his face grim. A baby blanket, pink, with "Welcome home, Elena," embroidered on it. The room tilted. Elena reached out blindly and Adrian caught her, his arms coming around her with fierce protectiveness. They know, she whispered. They know about the baby. They know we're here. Yes. Adrian's voice was deadly calm, the tone he used when making decisions that would end lives. Which means this stops being defensive. We're not running anymore, Elena. We're not hiding. Whoever is doing this has just made a critical mistake. What mistake? Adrian's smile was cold and terrible and absolutely merciless. They've revealed that they're watching us closely enough to know we're here within hours of our arrival. That level of surveillance requires resources, coordination, and proximity. They've narrowed down the suspect list considerably. How does that help us? Because now I know who to hunt. He released Elena gently, turning to Marcus. Contact everyone who had access to our location tonight. I want them here within 2 hours, all of them. Boss, that's 12 people. Bringing them all here is exactly what we're going to do. Adrian's eyes were hard as diamonds. One of them is the leak. One of them knows who's behind this. And before the sun rises, I'm going to find out which one. Elena watched the transformation in her husband's expression, saw the ruthless crime boss eclipse the gentle man who'd felt their daughter kick for the first time. This was the Adrian Volkov the world feared, calculating, merciless, willing to do whatever it took to eliminate threats. And for the first time since she'd fled 10 months ago, Elena wasn't afraid of that darkness. She was grateful for it, because that darkness was the only thing standing between her daughter and whoever wanted them dead. The next 2 hours passed with agonizing slowness. Elena sat in the living room, wrapped in a blanket Sophia had draped over her shoulders, watching Adrian transform the safe house into an interrogation chamber. He moved through the space with predatory efficiency, rearranging furniture, setting up what looked like a recording system, speaking in low tones to Marcus about security protocols and contingency plans. This was a side of Adrian she'd only glimpsed during their marriage, the strategic commander who'd built an empire through careful planning and ruthless execution. He wasn't angry, wasn't emotional. He was ice cold and calculating, and that made him infinitely more dangerous than rage ever could. You should try to sleep, Sophia said quietly, settling into the chair beside Elena. This is going to be a long night, and you need rest. I couldn't sleep if I tried. Elena's hand moved to her belly, where Sophia Grace was mercifully still for the moment. How does he do this? How does he just switch off his emotions and become that? Practice. Necessity. Survival. Sophia poured tea from a fresh pot she'd brought in. Adrian grew up in a world where showing weakness meant death. He learned very young how to compartmentalize, how to put his feelings in a box and deal with what needed to be dealt with. It's not that he doesn't feel things. He feels them very deeply. He's just exceptionally good at not letting those feelings interfere with what needs to be done. That's terrifying. Yes, but it's also what's kept him alive long enough to meet you, marry you, and have a chance at being a father. Sophia handed Elena a cup. We don't get to pick and choose which parts of a person we keep. Adrian's ruthlessness and his capacity for love come from the same place, an absolute refusal to lose what matters to him. Elena sipped the tea, letting the warmth spread through her. You really care about him. He gave Marcus and me a life when we had nothing. He's been loyal, generous, and protective of the people he considers family. Sophia's expression grew sad. But I won't lie to you and say that life with Adrian is easy. It's not. It's dangerous and complicated and sometimes deeply painful. You have to decide if what you gain from being with him outweighs what you sacrifice. What did you sacrifice? Peace of mind, the luxury of ignorance, the ability to pretend the world is a safe, fair place. Sophia's smile was wry. But what I gained was a husband who's alive instead of dead, a home instead of poverty, and the knowledge that someone powerful has my back when things go wrong. For me, that trade was worth it. For you, it might not be. Before Elena could respond, headlights swept across the windows. The first of Adrian's people had arrived. Adrian moved to the door with Marcus flanking him. Elena watched as he opened it to reveal a tall woman in her 40s, dressed in business casual despite the late hour. She had sharp features and sharper eyes, and she looked annoyed at being summoned. "This better be important, Volkov. I was in the middle of—" "Come inside, Detective Morrison. We have a lot to discuss." Detective Morrison. Elena recognized the name from conversations she'd overheard during her marriage. Morrison was one of Adrian's most valuable assets, a police detective who fed him information about ongoing investigations in exchange for money and protection. The arrangement had always made Elena uncomfortable, this casual corruption of the justice system. Morrison entered, her eyes sweeping the room and landing on Elena with visible surprise. "Well, that's unexpected. I thought you'd left for good." "Plans change," Elena said evenly. More vehicles arrived in quick succession. Elena watched Adrian's inner circle assemble in the living room, a collection of dangerous people united by loyalty to one man. There was Yuri, Adrian's enforcer, a mountain of muscle with cold eyes and scarred knuckles. Dmitri, his financial advisor, nervous and sweating despite the cool temperature. Carmen, who ran his legitimate business operations, beautiful and poised and watching everyone with calculating attention. Others whose names Elena didn't know, but whose roles she could guess from their bearing: soldiers, accountants, fixers, all the people necessary to maintain an empire built on illegal activity. 12 people total, just as Marcus had said. 12 people who'd known they were coming to the safe house, one of whom had apparently shared that information with someone who wanted Elena dead. Adrian waited until everyone was seated, arranged in a loose semicircle facing him. He stood with his back to the fireplace, silhouetted by flames, looking every inch the powerful crime boss he was. "Thank you for coming on short notice," he began, his voice carrying easily through the room. "I know many of you cleared schedules, interrupted personal time, and traveled some distance to be here. I appreciate your loyalty." "Cut to the chase, Adrian," Yuri rumbled. "It's after midnight. What's this about?" "It's about a traitor." Adrian let the word hang in the air, watched faces for reactions. "Someone in this room has been sharing information about my wife's whereabouts. Someone betrayed her location to people who want her dead, and I'm going to find out who." The room exploded with denials, protests, and angry questions. Adrian let them talk over each other for exactly 30 seconds before he raised one hand. The gesture was small, but silence fell immediately. "Here are the facts," Adrian continued. 10 months ago, someone threatened Elena's life in very specific terms. She disappeared to protect herself and our unborn child. Today, she returned to file for divorce. Within hours, someone tried to access Volkov Tower using her cloned credentials. When I brought her here, to a location known only to people in this room, a threat was delivered to our front gate within 2 hours of our arrival. That level of surveillance, that kind of precision, requires inside information. Carmen leaned forward, her expression sharp. "You're saying one of us is working with your enemies." "I'm saying one of you is the enemy." Adrian's gaze swept across them all, measuring, assessing. "Whether through betrayal, blackmail, or personal ambition, one of you has been feeding information to someone who wants to destroy me by killing my wife and child. Tonight, that ends." Detective Morrison stood abruptly. "I don't have to sit here and be accused." "You'll sit." Adrian's voice cracked like a whip. "You'll all sit, and you'll answer my questions because the alternative is being treated as a hostile threat, and we all know how I deal with those." Morrison sat. Elena watched the dynamics playing out, saw how each person reacted to Adrian's accusations. Some looked offended, others afraid, a few calculating. But all of them stayed seated, stayed quiet, stayed under control. Because defying Adrian Volkov openly was a death sentence, and everyone in this room knew it. "I'm going to make this simple," Adrian said. "I'm going to ask each of you a series of questions. Where you were today, who you've spoken to in the past 24 hours, what you knew about Elena's return. You're going to answer honestly and completely. If I detect lies, if I sense evasion, you're going to have a very bad night." "And if we all tell the truth, and you still can't identify the leak?" Dmitri asked nervously. "What then?" "Then I expand my investigation, but I don't think that will be necessary." Adrian's smile was cold. Because whoever is behind this made a mistake. They got impatient, moved too quickly. The baby blanket was a taunt, a way of saying they know everything, but it also reveals desperation. They want Elena scared enough to run again, want me distracted enough to make mistakes. That suggests someone who's losing control of the situation, who needs to force the outcome they want. He moved closer to the group, his presence looming. So let's start with the obvious question. Who here knew I had a safe house in this location? Hands went up slowly. 7 out of 12. Marcus and Sophia, obviously. Yuri, who'd helped Adrian acquire the property years ago. Carmen, who handled the legal paperwork through shell companies. Detective Morrison, who'd run background checks on the area. And 2 others, Ivan, head of security, and Alexei, Adrian's second-in-command in the organization's day-to-day operations. Good, that narrows things down. Adrian focused on the 7 with raised hands. Who among you has been here before today? Marcus, Sophia, and Yuri kept their hands up. The others lowered them. Who knew I was bringing Elena here specifically? Only Marcus and Sophia. Who did you tell about our arrival? Adrian asked Marcus directly. No one, boss, I swear. Sophia and I came straight here from the city after you texted. We didn't stop, didn't make calls, didn't communicate with anyone. Marcus's voice was steady, but Elena could see the fear in his eyes. Being interrogated by Adrian, even when innocent, was clearly terrifying. Adrian turned to the others. The rest of you received calls telling you to come here tonight. Who made those calls? I did, Marcus said, on your orders. But I didn't mention Elena. I just said it was urgent, priority alpha, your location. And yet someone knew she was here within 2 hours and delivered that blanket. Adrian's eyes narrowed, which means either Marcus is lying, someone in this room made a call after arriving, or our security has been compromised in a way I haven't identified yet. Elena watched Dmitri shift uncomfortably in his seat. The financial advisor was sweating more heavily now, his eyes darting between Adrian and the door, as if calculating escape routes. Adrian noticed. Of course he noticed. Dmitri, you look nervous. I'm always nervous when you do these interrogations, Adrian. You know that. True. But you're usually nervous in a general way. Right now you look specifically terrified. Why? I'm not. There's no reason. I haven't done anything wrong. Dmitri's voice climbed in pitch. I manage your money. That's all. I don't know anything about threats or surveillance or empty your pockets. What? Your pockets, Dmitri. Empty them. Phone, wallet, keys, everything. Put them on the table in front of you. Dmitri hesitated just long enough to confirm Adrian's suspicions. Yuri was moving before Adrian even gestured, crossing the room in 3 long strides and hauling Dmitri to his feet. Do it yourself or I do it for you, Yuri rumbled. Your choice. With shaking hands, Dmitri pulled items from his pockets. Wallet, keys, a stick of gum, his phone. The phone clattered onto the coffee table and Adrian picked it up immediately. Unlock it. Adrian, please. This is my personal. Unlock it, or I'll have Yuri break every finger in your right hand and unlock it myself. Dmitri unlocked it. Adrian scrolled through recent calls, messages, apps. His expression remained neutral, but Elena saw his jaw tighten almost imperceptibly. He found something. You've been texting someone using an encrypted messaging app. Adrian's voice was dangerously quiet. Someone who, according to these messages, has been very interested in my wife's whereabouts. Someone you've been updating regularly about my movements, my schedule, my security arrangements. I can explain, then explain. Adrian tossed the phone back to Dmitri. Explain why you've been feeding information to someone who wants Elena dead. Explain why you've betrayed me after 10 years of employment. Explain it in a way that makes me decide to let you live. Dmitri's face crumpled. He looked around the room as if seeking support, but found only cold stares and closed expressions. No one would help him now. He'd broken the cardinal rule of Adrian's organization, loyalty above all else. They have my daughter, Dmitri whispered. My Anna. They took her 3 months ago. They said if I didn't cooperate, they'd kill her. I had no choice, Adrian. Please understand. I had no choice. The room was silent except for the crackling fire. Elena felt her heart constrict with unwanted sympathy. A father protecting his daughter. She understood that motivation better than she wanted to admit. In Dimitri's position, with Sophia Grace's life hanging in the balance, what wouldn't she do? But Adrian's expression didn't soften. If anything, it grew harder. "You had a choice," Adrian said. "You could have come to me, told me about the threat. Let me use my resources to find Anna and eliminate whoever took her. Instead, you decided to cooperate with people who want to kill my wife and child. You chose to save your daughter by sacrificing mine. I didn't think they'd actually hurt her. I thought they just wanted information, wanted to know your movements, wanted leverage for negotiations." Negotiations. Adrian's laugh was bitter. "You thought someone who kidnaps a child wants to negotiate. You're not just a traitor, Dimitri. You're a fool." "Adrian, please. I'll do anything. I'll tell you everything I know. I'll help you find them. Just please, help me get Anna back. She's only 8 years old. She's innocent in all this." "So is my daughter." Adrian gestured to Elena's belly. "So is my wife, who's been running and hiding for 10 months because of information you provided. You want me to care about your child while you actively endangered mine?" Elena stood, the movement drawing everyone's attention. She walked slowly across the room until she stood beside Adrian, close enough to feel the fury radiating from him like heat. "Who has Anna?" she asked Dimitri directly. "Who took her? Who have you been reporting to?" Dimitri's eyes were red, tears streaming down his face. "I don't know names. All communication has been through encrypted messages. They send instructions. I provide information. The only thing I know is that whoever is behind this has resources, connections, and reach that rivals Adrian's organization." "That's not an answer," Adrian said. "It's the only answer I have. I swear, Adrian, if I knew who they were, I'd tell you. I'd give you anything to get Anna back safe." Carmen spoke up from her position near the window. "He's telling the truth. Or at least he believes he's telling the truth. Look at him. He's terrified and desperate. He's not holding back information intentionally." "Doesn't matter." Yuri cracked his knuckles meaningfully. "He still betrayed the organization, still put Elena and the baby at risk. The penalty for that is not death," Elena interrupted. All eyes turned to her. "Not yet. Not until we get more information." Adrian's gaze locked with hers. "Elena, he's our only connection to whoever is behind this. Kill him now, and that connection dies with him." Elena kept her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Use him. Feed false information through him. Set a trap. Do whatever you need to do. But keep him alive until we find who took his daughter and who wants us dead." Keeping him alive is a liability. Killing him is short-sighted. Elena placed a hand on Adrian's arm, felt the tension coiled in his muscles. "You taught me that business is about leverage, about playing the long game. Dimitri is leverage. He's also a father trying to protect his child. I can't condone what he did, but I understand why he did it, and I think we can use that desperation to our advantage." Adrian looked at her for a long moment, and Elena saw the war playing out behind his eyes. His instinct was to eliminate the threat, to punish betrayal swiftly and absolutely. But he'd asked her to trust him, to give him 30 days to prove he could be different. She was offering him the same chance, to prove he could choose strategy over immediate violence when the situation called for it. "All right," Adrian said finally. "We do this your way. For now." He turned back to Dimitri, who was watching the exchange with desperate hope. "You're going to continue communicating with your contact exactly as you have been. You're going to feed them whatever information I tell you to feed them. And you're going to pray that your cooperation leads me to Anna before I change my mind about letting you live. Understood?" "Yes. Yes, thank you, Adrian. Thank you, Elena. I'll do whatever you need. Yuri, take him to the basement. Make sure he's comfortable but secured. I want 24-hour watch on him." Adrian's voice was cold again, emotionless. "And get me everything on his phone. I want to know every message, every timestamp, every piece of data that might lead us to whoever he's been talking to." Yuri hauled Dimitri toward the stairs that led down to what Elena assumed was a basement. She tried not to think about what comfortable but secured might mean in Adrian's world. The remaining people in the room shifted uncomfortably. They just watched one of their own exposed as a traitor, had seen how quickly Adrian's protection could turn to ruthless judgment. "The rest of you are free to go," Adrian said. "But understand this. I'm expanding my security protocols. I'm auditing every phone, every computer, every communication device used by anyone in my organization. If there are other leaks, I will find them. If anyone else has been compromised, now is the time to come forward. Because the next time I discover betrayal, I won't be as merciful as I was tonight. Merciful. Elena almost laughed at the word. Dmitri was being held prisoner in a basement, his fate dependent on his usefulness. That was Adrian's version of mercy. The group dispersed quickly, eager to escape the tension in Adrian's penetrating gaze. Detective Morrison paused at the door. For what it's worth, I'm sorry about this. About Elena being in danger. If there's anything I can do, find out if any reports have been filed about missing children matching Anna's description, Adrian said. 3 months ago, 8 years old. Dmitri's last name is Petrov. His ex-wife has primary custody and lives on the north side. I'll check our databases. If anything comes up, you'll be the first to know. Morrison left, and then it was just Adrian, Elena, Marcus, and Sophia in the living room. The fire had burned low, casting long shadows across the walls. Outside, car engines started, and headlights swept across the windows as Adrian's people departed into the night. Adrian sank into a chair, suddenly looking exhausted. The careful control he'd maintained throughout the interrogation cracked, and Elena saw the toll it had taken on him. This wasn't easy for him either, she realized. Playing the ruthless crime boss, threatening people he'd worked with for years, maintaining that cold facade. It required energy and will that even Adrian didn't have infinite reserves of. She moved to him without thinking, her hand finding his shoulder. He looked up at her, surprise and gratitude warring in his expression. You were right, he said quietly. Keeping Dmitri alive gives us options. I was about to eliminate those options because I was angry. You were protecting me, protecting our daughter. That anger is understandable. It's also dangerous. Anger makes people sloppy, makes them miss details. Adrian's hand covered hers on his shoulder. Thank you for pulling me back from that edge. Marcus cleared his throat. I'll go check the perimeter, make sure everyone actually left. Sophia, maybe you could... I'll make coffee. Something tells me sleep isn't happening for anyone tonight. Sophia headed toward the kitchen, leaving Elena and Adrian in the flickering firelight. Elena lowered herself into the chair beside him, her pregnant body protesting the late hour and stress. Sophia Grace kicked, hard, as if objecting to all the excitement. She's active, Adrian observed, watching Elena's hand move to her belly. She doesn't like it when I'm stressed, or when I'm tired, or when I eat spicy food, or when music is too loud. Basically, she has opinions about everything already. A smile ghosted across Adrian's face. She gets that from you. She gets that from both of us. You're the most opinionated person I've ever met. Fair point. Adrian reached out hesitantly, and Elena guided his hand to where the baby was moving. They sat like that for a moment, connected by the small life they'd created, the chaos of the night temporarily forgotten. I meant what I said earlier, Elena said quietly, about understanding why Dmitri did what he did. If someone threatened Sophia Grace, if they said they'd hurt her unless I cooperated, I would do terrible things. I would betray anyone, sacrifice anything, break any rule. So I can't judge him too harshly for doing the same thing to protect Anna. You have a kind heart. It's one of the things I love about you, even when it complicates my security protocols. Adrian's thumb traced gentle circles on her belly. But kindness can be a weakness in my world. People will exploit it, use it against you. Then maybe your world needs more kindness. Maybe that's the change you need to make. You want me to go soft. I want you to remember that everyone you threaten, everyone you hurt, everyone you eliminate, they're someone's husband, father, son. They're people, Adrian, not just obstacles to be removed. Elena captured his hand, held it still. You can be powerful without being cruel. You can protect what's yours without becoming a monster. And if being a monster is what keeps you and Sophia Grace alive, if cruelty is the price of your safety, then we figure out a different way. Together. Elena met his eyes steadily. You asked for 30 days to prove we could make this work. That includes proving you can change how you operate. Not becoming someone completely different, but finding a balance between the ruthless crime boss and the man who just felt his daughter kick for the first time. Adrian was silent for a long moment, processing her words. Outside, Marcus could be heard doing a perimeter check. Inside, Sophia moved around the kitchen with quiet efficiency. And between them, Sophia Grace moved beneath their joined hands, a reminder of what they were fighting for. "I don't know if I can be what you need me to be," Adrian said finally. "I've spent my entire adult life building an empire through fear and force. Changing that? Becoming someone who leads differently? I don't have a template for that." "Neither do I, but we have 30 days to figure it out." Elena squeezed his hand. "And we have a pretty compelling reason to try." Before Adrian could respond, the house phone rang. Not a cell phone, the landline that Elena hadn't even realized existed. Marcus appeared in the doorway, his expression grim. "Boss, you need to take this. They're calling from the basement. Dmitri wants to talk to you, says it's urgent." Adrian stood, releasing Elena's hand reluctantly. "Stay here. If this is what I think it is." The house phone rang again, insistent. Adrian answered, putting it on speaker. Dimitri's voice came through, strained and desperate. "Adrian, they just sent a message, a video, of Anna. They hurt her. They know I'm here, they know you're interrogating me, and they hurt my daughter because of it." Elena's blood went cold. Somehow, whoever was behind this knew what was happening in the safe house, knew that Adrian had discovered the leak, knew that Dmitri had been caught, which meant the threat wasn't just Dmitri. There was someone else, someone still hidden, someone watching them right now. Adrian's eyes met Elena's across the room, and she saw the same realization dawning in his expression. The interrogation hadn't solved their problem. It had made it infinitely worse. "Get down there," Adrian ordered Marcus. "Lock down every entrance. Check every window, every door, every possible access point. If there's a camera, a bug, any kind of surveillance equipment in this house, I want it found. Now." Marcus ran for the basement stairs. Sophia emerged from the kitchen, looking alarmed. And somewhere in the night surrounding them, invisible and patient, their enemy was watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Adrian moved with lethal precision, his phone already out and dialing as he strode toward the windows. "Ivan, I need a full security sweep of the property. Thermal imaging, electronic surveillance detection, everything. Someone's watching us, and they're close enough to have real-time intelligence." Elena heard Ivan's response through the phone, terse and professional. Adrian ended the call and turned to Sophia, who stood frozen in the kitchen doorway with a coffee pot in her hands. "Sophia, I need you to take Elena upstairs. Lock yourselves in the master bedroom. There's a panic room accessible through the closet. Third panel from the left, press the upper right corner. The door will open. Get inside and don't come out until either Marcus or I come for you personally." "Adrian, what's happening?" Elena's voice was steadier than she felt. Sophia Grace was moving frantically now, as if sensing her mother's fear. "Someone has been inside this house. Recently." "Poem." Adrian's eyes swept the room, looking for cameras, bugs, anything out of place. The only way they could know about Dmitri being caught this quickly is if they're watching us actively, which means we've been compromised since before we arrived. The implications hit Elena like a physical blow. If the house had been compromised before they arrived, then bringing Adrian's people here hadn't been a security measure. It had been walking into a trap. Whoever wanted her dead had been orchestrating this entire night, anticipating Adrian's moves, staying 3 steps ahead. "Marcus said this place was secure," Elena said. "He said no one knew about it." "Marcus believed that. I believed that. We were both wrong." Adrian crossed to her, his hands finding her shoulders with desperate urgency. "Elena, I need you to trust me right now. I need you to go with Sophia and stay hidden while I handle this. Can you do that?" Every instinct Elena had screamed at her to argue, to demand answers, to refuse to be locked away while Adrian walked into danger. But the baby kicked hard against her ribs, and she thought about Dimitri's daughter Anna, hurt and terrified somewhere because her father had tried to protect her by making deals with monsters. "Okay," she said, "but Adrian, if something happens, if they get past you, they won't." He said it with absolute certainty, as if he could bend reality through sheer force of will. "I will burn this entire property to the ground before I let anyone touch you or our daughter. Do you understand me? Nothing gets through me. Nothing." Sophia was beside Elena then, her arm around her waist, gently guiding her toward the stairs. Elena let herself be led, looking back over her shoulder at Adrian. He stood in the center of the room like a king surveying a battlefield, every line of his body radiating controlled violence and fierce determination. The stairs seemed longer than they had earlier, each step an effort. Elena's body ached from stress and exhaustion, her pregnant weight making her movement slow and awkward. Sophia supported her with surprising strength, murmuring quiet reassurances that Elena barely heard over the pounding of her own heart. The master bedroom was at the end of the hall, spacious and elegantly furnished in tones of cream and navy. Sophia led her directly to the walk-in closet, counting panels from the left, as Adrian had instructed. She pressed the upper right corner of the third panel, and with a soft click, a section of the wall swung inward to reveal a steel door. "It's biometric," Sophia explained, placing her palm against the scanner beside the door. "Adrian programmed my handprint years ago, in case of emergency. The door will seal behind us and won't open again except from Adrian's phone or a manual override that only he and Marcus know." The steel door slid open with a pneumatic hiss, revealing a room about 12 feet square. It was surprisingly comfortable for a panic room. A small sofa, shelves stocked with water and non-perishable food, a bathroom visible through an open door at the back, and a wall of monitors showing different views of the property through security cameras. Elena sank onto the sofa as Sophia sealed the door behind them. The click of the locks engaging felt final, like being buried alive. She forced herself to breathe slowly, to focus on something other than the walls pressing in around her. "How long have you known about this room?" she asked, needing to hear a human voice, even her own. "Since Adrian built the house, about 8 years ago." Sophia settled beside her, reaching for a remote that brought the security monitors to life. "He's always been paranoid about safety, about having contingencies. Marcus used to joke that Adrian had contingencies for his contingencies. That paranoia doesn't seem so unreasonable anymore." "No, it doesn't." Sophia adjusted the monitors, cycling through different camera angles. Elena could see the living room where Adrian stood talking on his phone, the kitchen where Marcus was searching cabinets, the exterior showing the dark woods surrounding the property. "There. Do you see that?" Elena followed Sophia's pointing finger to one of the exterior monitors. At first, she saw nothing unusual, just trees and shadows and the pale gravel of the driveway. Then movement caught her eye, subtle and deliberate. A figure dressed in dark clothing, moving through the tree line about 50 yards from the house. "Someone's out there," Elena whispered. Several someones. Sophia pointed to another monitor showing the opposite side of the house. 2 more figures advancing with professional precision, using the forest as cover. "They're surrounding the property. Adrian's got maybe 5 minutes before they're in position." Elena's hand moved to her belly protectively. "We need to warn him. He knows. Look." Sophia indicated the living room monitor where Adrian was no longer visible. The space appeared empty, but Elena could see signs of preparation. Furniture had been shifted to create defensive positions, lights had been turned off in strategic areas, and the front door stood slightly ajar, as if inviting approach. Marcus appeared on one of the monitors, moving through the house with a rifle in his hands. He took up position near a second-floor window with a clear view of the driveway. His movements were calm, practiced, those of a man who'd been in combat before and knew how to handle himself under pressure. "How many times has this happened before?" Elena asked. "How many times has Adrian's home been attacked?" "Twice that I know of. Once about 6 years ago, when a rival organization decided to eliminate him. Once 3 years ago, when a former business partner turned informant and tried to have Adrian arrested." Sophia's expression was grim. Both times, the people who came for him didn't leave alive. Elena watched the monitors, tracking the dark figures as they moved closer to the house. There were at least 6 that she could see, possibly more beyond the camera range. They moved with military precision, communicating through hand signals, covering each other's advances. "These aren't street thugs," Elena said. "They're professionals, which means whoever hired them has serious resources. The kind of money it takes to hire this level of talent, we're talking 6 figures minimum, probably more." Sophia's fingers drummed nervously on her knee. "This is coordinated, planned, well-funded. Someone really wants you dead, Elena. Or wants to use you to destroy Adrian, or both." The baby kicked, and Elena gasped. The movement was different this time, sharper, almost painful. She pressed both hands to her belly, trying to soothe Sophia Grace through sheer force of maternal will. "Are you okay?" Sophia was instantly alert, her attention shifting from the monitors to Elena. "Is it the baby?" She's just active, stressed maybe. I don't know if babies can sense their mother's fear, but if they can, she's terrified right now. Talk to her. My mother always said babies in the womb could hear their mothers, that it calmed them to hear a familiar voice. Sophia stood and moved to the small refrigerator in the corner. I'm going to get you some water. Stay calm, breathe deep, and talk to your daughter. Elena felt foolish, but she did it anyway. She closed her eyes and placed both hands on her belly, feeling the small movements beneath her palms. Hey, Sophia Grace, she whispered. It's Mom. I know things are scary right now. I know you can probably feel how fast my heart is beating, how tense I am. But I need you to know something. Your father, your dad, he's out there right now making sure we stay safe. He's dangerous and ruthless and absolutely determined to protect us. So we're going to be okay. We have to be okay because he won't accept any other outcome. The baby shifted, the movements becoming less frantic. Elena kept talking, describing the room around them, the monitors showing the property, the way Sophia was being so kind and brave. She talked about the future, about holding Sophia Grace for the first time, about watching her grow up somewhere safe and beautiful. She was mid-sentence when the first gunshot cracked through the night. Elena's eyes flew open, her gaze locking on the monitors. One of the dark figures had fallen, clutching his leg. Marcus, from his position at the second-floor window, had fired a warning shot. But instead of retreating, the other figures scattered and returned fire. Muzzle flashes lit up the darkness like deadly fireflies. Glass shattered somewhere in the house, the sound muffled but unmistakable through the panic room's insulation. They're breaching, Sophia said, her voice tight. Front and back simultaneously. Standard tactical approach. On the monitors, Elena watched Adrian move through the house like a ghost. He appeared on one camera, disappeared, then reappeared on another, always in motion, always one step ahead of the advancing figures. He carried a handgun in one hand and what looked like a remote device in the other. Two intruders made it through the front door, moving with weapons raised in professional caution. They advanced through the entry hall toward the living room, covering each other with practiced efficiency. Adrian was waiting. Elena watched as he stepped from behind a doorway, fired twice in rapid succession, and disappeared again before the intruders could return fire. Both men went down, one clutching his shoulder, the other his thigh. Non-lethal shots. Adrian was disabling them, not killing them. He wants them alive for questioning, Elena realized. He wants to know who sent them. More intruders poured through the back entrance. Marcus took down one from his elevated position, but there were too many, coming too fast. Within seconds, the house was swarming with hostile figures, and Adrian and Marcus were outnumbered at least 4-1. Why aren't they calling for backup? Elena demanded. Adrian has an entire organization. Why are just the two of them fighting? Because backup is 20 minutes away at minimum, and this fight will be over in 5. Sophia's knuckles were white where she gripped the remote. Adrian built this house to be defensible by a small force. Every room, every hallway, it's all designed with specific tactical advantages. He and Marcus have been training for this scenario for years. As if to prove her point, Adrian triggered something on his remote device. Suddenly, sections of the house Elena hadn't paid attention to before came alive. Metal shutters slammed down over windows. Reinforced doors sealed hallways. What had been an open floor plan transformed into a maze of defensive positions and killing zones. The intruders found themselves trapped in sections of the house, separated from their teammates, facing off against an enemy who knew every inch of the terrain and had prepared for exactly this scenario. Adrian moved through his fortress like an avenging angel, taking down intruders with brutal efficiency. He fought with the precision of someone who'd spent a lifetime in combat, every movement calculated, every shot deliberate. He wasn't trying to kill them, not yet, but he was making it very clear that he could if he chose to. Marcus provided covering fire from above, his rifle picking off anyone who tried to flank Adrian's position. Together, they moved like a two-man army, coordinated and lethal. But there were still too many. Elena watched a group of 3 intruders converge on Adrian's position from different angles. He couldn't cover all approaches simultaneously. One of them was going to get a clean shot. "No," Elena breathed, pressing closer to the monitor. "Adrian, behind you." On screen, Adrian spun at the last second, firing at the intruder behind him. But the movement left him exposed to another attacker. Elena saw the muzzle flash, saw Adrian stagger. He'd been hit. Adrian! Elena was on her feet before Sophia could stop her, pounding on the steel door with both fists. We have to help him. We have to. We can't. Sophia grabbed Elena's shoulders, physically restraining her. If we open this door, we compromise our position. Adrian would never forgive me if I let you walk into danger. He'd never forgive himself. He's bleeding. I can see blood on the monitor. Elena fought against Sophia's grip, but the older woman was surprisingly strong. Let me go. That's my husband out there, the father of my child. And he's doing his job, which is keeping you safe. Sophia turned Elena forcibly toward the monitors. Look. Really look. Through her tears, Elena forced herself to focus on the screen. Adrian had been hit. Yes, she could see blood darkening his shirt on the left side. But he was still standing, still fighting, still moving with deadly purpose. The wound hadn't slowed him down. If anything, it had made him more dangerous. The intruder who'd shot him never got a chance to fire again. Adrian closed the distance between them in 2 swift strides and disarmed him with brutal efficiency. Within seconds, the man was on the ground, unconscious or worse. Marcus's voice crackled through speakers Elena hadn't noticed before, some kind of internal communication system. Boss, you're hit! How bad? Grazed. I'm fine. Adrian's voice was tight with pain but steady. Status on the perimeter? 4 down outside, 2 detained inside, 1 retreating through the west woods. I've got no shot. Too much tree cover. Let him run. I want him to report back that attacking my home was a mistake. Adrian moved through the house, checking each fallen intruder. Start securing the ones who are still conscious. I have questions for them. The battle, which had felt like it lasted hours, had taken less than 10 minutes from first shot to final confrontation. Elena watched the monitors in stunned silence as Adrian and Marcus moved through the house, zip-tying hands and feet, checking weapons, securing their position. 6 intruders total inside the house. All down. All alive, but very clearly defeated. Adrian appeared on the monitor showing the living room. He was pressing a hand to his side where blood seeped through his shirt, but his expression was calm, almost businesslike. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Ivan, the property is secure but compromised. I need a full cleanup team here within 30 minutes. Medical, tactical support, and someone to transport prisoners for interrogation. No, Elena's safe. She's in the panic room with Sophia. Tell them to come in loud. I want whoever's watching to know that this attack failed spectacularly. He ended the call and looked directly at one of the cameras, the one that fed into the panic room. His eyes found the lens as if he could see through it to where Elena stood watching. You can come out now, he said, his voice transmitted through the speakers. It's over. Sophia moved to the door, placing her palm on the scanner. The locks disengaged with a series of clicks, and the steel door swung open. Elena rushed through the closet, through the bedroom, down the hall toward the stairs. She found Adrian in the living room, surrounded by unconscious or restrained intruders, blood still seeping through his fingers where he pressed them to his side. He looked up as she entered, and relief washed across his features. You're supposed to wait until I come get you, he said, but there was no heat in the words. You're bleeding. Elena crossed to him, her hands reaching for his shirt. Let me see how bad it is. It's nothing. The bullet grazed my ribs. Painful, but not serious. But he let her lift his shirt, let her examine the wound that carved an angry red line across his left side. It was still bleeding, but Adrian was right. The bullet had missed anything vital. You need stitches and antibiotics, and I'm fine, Elena. Adrian caught her hands gently, stilling their frantic movement. I've had worse. Much worse. This is barely worth mentioning. You were shot protecting me. That's worth mentioning. Elena's voice broke. You could have been killed. Marcus could have been killed, all because someone wants me dead badly enough to send a professional hit squad. A hit squad that failed. Adrian's hands framed her face, tilting it up so she had to meet his eyes. They came here with training and weapons and numbers, and they still failed, because I will not let anyone hurt you. I told you that earlier, and I meant it. Nothing gets through me. Marcus appeared in the doorway, his rifle still in hand. Ivan's team is inbound. ETA 15 minutes. We've got 6 prisoners to process and a lot of questions to ask. Good. Start with the ones who are conscious. I want to know who hired them, who gave them this location, and what the ultimate objective was. Adrian released Elena reluctantly. And Marcus? Make it clear that cooperation will be rewarded and resistance will be very, very unpleasant. Marcus nodded and moved toward the restrained intruders. Elena watched him work, watched the transformation from friendly maintenance man to something much harder and more dangerous. This was the reality of Adrian's world: violence and interrogation and casual discussions of torture. She should be horrified. She should be gathering her things and running again, taking her daughter far away from this darkness. But all she felt was grateful. Grateful that Adrian had the skills and ruthlessness to protect them. Grateful that he was alive. Grateful that Sophia Grace would have the chance to know her father. "You're thinking too loud," Adrian said quietly. "I can practically hear your thoughts spiraling. I'm thinking that I should be more disturbed by all this, by the bodies, the blood, the casual way you talk about interrogation. I should be horrified. But you're not." "No, I'm relieved, and that scares me more than anything else." Elena looked up at him. "What does it say about me that I'm glad you're capable of this kind of violence? That I'm grateful for the darkness in you?" "It says you're a mother protecting her child. It says you understand that sometimes survival requires moral compromise. It says you're stronger than you think you are." Adrian's thumb traced her cheekbone gently. "You're not becoming a monster, Elena. You're just accepting that monsters have their uses when facing other monsters." One of the restrained intruders groaned, drawing Adrian's attention. He was a man in his 30s, dressed in tactical gear, with a gunshot wound in his shoulder, courtesy of Adrian's earlier shot. His eyes, when they opened, were filled with pain and something that looked like resignation. Adrian crossed to him, crouching down to eye level. "You're awake. Good. That makes this easier." "I'm not telling you anything," the man said through gritted teeth. "You can torture me, kill me, whatever. I'm not talking. Everyone talks eventually. It's just a question of how much pain they endure first." Adrian's tone was conversational, almost friendly. "But I'm going to make you an offer. One chance to do this the easy way. Tell me who hired you, and I'll make sure you get medical treatment and a relatively quick trial. Refuse, and I let my friend Marcus get creative with his questions. He's very good at making people reconsider their loyalty." "You think I'm afraid of pain? I've been through worse than anything your boy can dish out." "I'm sure you have, but have you been through worse while knowing that your cooperation could save a child's life?" Adrian pulled out his phone, showed the man a photo. Elena couldn't see what it was, but she saw the way the intruder's face went pale. "That's Anna Petrov, 8 years old, being held by whoever hired you. If you tell me what I need to know, I might be able to save her." "If you don't, she dies, and her death is on your conscience." The man's jaw worked, conflict playing across his features. "You're lying. You're trying to manipulate me." "I'm trying to save a child who has nothing to do with any of this. Her only crime was having a father who got caught in the same web you're trapped in now." Adrian leaned closer. "You were hired to do a job. That job failed. Your employer isn't going to extract you, isn't going to pay your medical bills or legal fees. You're disposable to them. But to me, you're valuable. Not as a person, but as a source of information. Tell me what I want to know, and I'll make sure you survive this. Keep silent, and you're just another body for Ivan's cleanup team to dispose of." Elena watched the negotiation with fascination and horror. Adrian wasn't threatening in the traditional sense. He was presenting facts, laying out options, and letting the man reach his own conclusions. It was manipulation at its finest, psychological warfare disguised as reasonable conversation. It worked. "Volkov, right?" the man said finally. "You're Adrian Volkov, the one they sent us to destroy." "They sent you to kill my wife, to send a message by eliminating the woman I love and the child she's carrying. That was the original plan. But plans changed when Dmitri got caught." The man coughed, grimaced at the pain in his shoulder. "We were supposed to observe, report back, wait for the right moment. Then you interrogated your people, and our employer decided to accelerate the timeline." "Who's your employer?" The man hesitated, fear flickering across his features. Whatever he was about to reveal, it terrified him more than Adrian did. "Viktor Volkov," he said finally. "Your uncle. He's the one who wants your wife dead." The name hung in the air like poison. Elena saw Adrian's expression go completely blank. saw every emotion drain from his face until he looked carved from ice. "My uncle," he repeated softly. "My father's brother. The man who helped raise me after my parents died. The man who wants your empire, who sees your wife and child as weaknesses to be exploited, who's been orchestrating everything, the threats, the surveillance, the kidnapping of Dimitri's daughter." The intruder coughed again, blood flecking his lips. "He's been planning this for months, ever since he found out your wife was pregnant. He knew a child would make you vulnerable, would give him leverage he's never had before." Adrian stood slowly, his movements controlled but his fury palpable. Elena could see it in the set of his shoulders, the clench of his jaw, the way his hands had curled into fists. "Where is he?" Adrian's voice was deadly quiet. "Where is Victor?" "I don't know. He doesn't trust us with that information. All communication has been through intermediaries, encrypted messages, dead drops. He's been paranoid about you tracing anything back to him. But you've met him. You've seen his face. Once. 3 months ago, when he first hired our team. That's the only time any of us have been in the same room with him." "Where was that meeting?" The intruder gave an address on the north side of the city, an industrial area known for its abandoned warehouses and lack of police presence. Adrian committed it to memory, his expression never changing. "Is Anna there? Is that where Victor is keeping Dimitri's daughter?" "I don't know. My job was surveillance and tactical execution. I wasn't involved in the kidnapping." Adrian looked at Marcus, who'd been listening to the entire exchange. "Get Dimitri up here. I want him to hear this. And call Yuri. Tell him to assemble a team. We're going hunting." "Boss, you're injured. You should at least let medical look at that wound before what? Before I go deal with the fact that my own uncle has been trying to kill my wife and child? Before I confront the man who helped raise me and apparently decided I'm too weak to lead?" Adrian's laugh was bitter. "The wound is nothing, Marcus. Get me Dimitri and get me a team. Now." Marcus disappeared down the basement stairs. Elena moved to Adrian's side, her hand finding his. "You can't do this alone," she said quietly. "I know you're angry." "I'm not angry." Adrian's voice was eerily calm. "Anger would be simple. This is betrayal from someone I trusted, someone I considered family. This is learning that the man who taught me how to survive in this world has been planning my destruction for months. This goes beyond anger, Elena. This is personal in a way nothing else has ever been. Which is exactly why you shouldn't go after him tonight. You're emotional, you're injured, and you're not thinking clearly." "I'm thinking with perfect clarity. Victor has been orchestrating threats against you and our daughter. He has an 8-year-old girl locked away somewhere, using her as leverage. He sent a hit squad to our safe house. Every moment I wait is another moment he has to cover his tracks, hide evidence, hurt more people." Adrian turned to face her fully. "I'm ending this tonight, and I need you to trust that I know what I'm doing. I do trust you, but I also know that walking into this situation while you're bleeding and furious is dangerous. Victor knows you, Adrian. He knows how you think, how you operate. He's counting on you doing exactly what you're about to do, going after him immediately, emotionally compromised, without proper preparation." "Then what do you suggest? That I wait? That I let him have more time to plan his next move?" "I suggest you let medical treat your wound, let Ivan's team arrive and secure this location, and then you plan your next move strategically instead of reactively." Elena squeezed his hand. "You told me earlier that anger makes people sloppy. Don't prove yourself right by rushing into this without thinking it through." Adrian stared at her for a long moment, and Elena could see the war playing out behind his eyes. The need for immediate action warring with the knowledge that she was right. The desire for revenge conflicting with the discipline that had kept him alive for 35 years in a world that killed the reckless. Finally, he nodded. "You're right. I hate that you're right, but you are." Dimitri emerged from the basement stairs, escorted by Marcus. His eyes were red from crying, his face haggard with fear and guilt. When he saw the restrained intruders, confusion crossed his features. "What happened? I heard gunfire." "Viktor Volkov has your daughter," Adrian said bluntly. "My uncle is the one who kidnapped Anna, who's been threatening Elena, who orchestrated everything, and you're going to help me get her back." Dimitri's legs seemed to give out. He sank to his knees, his hands covering his face. "Viktor Volkov, your uncle. He's the one who—" "I didn't know. I swear, Adrian, I had no idea who was behind this. If I'd known it was family, if I'd realized, it wouldn't have changed anything. Victor would still have your daughter, would still have threatened to kill her. Adrian's voice softened slightly. I'm not going to punish you for protecting your child, Dmitri, but I am going to use you to find her and bring her home safely. Can you do that? Can you help me? Dmitri looked up, hope and desperation warring on his features. Anything. I'll do anything you need. Just please help me get Anna back. Then tell me everything. Every message Victor sent you, every instruction, every demand. I need to know his patterns, his methods, anything that might help me locate where he's keeping her. As Dmitri began to talk, his words tumbling out in a desperate rush, Elena watched Adrian transform again. The emotional, injured husband faded away, replaced by the calculating strategist who'd built an empire through careful planning and ruthless execution. This was the man who would save Anna Petrov and eliminate the threat to their family. This was the man Elena had married in all his complicated, dangerous glory. And for the first time since she'd walked back into his office with divorce papers, Elena felt something shift inside her. Not forgiveness exactly, and not complete trust, but acceptance. Understanding that Adrian's darkness and his light came from the same source. An absolute refusal to lose what mattered to him. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. Ivan's cleanup team, arriving to secure the property and deal with the aftermath of the attack. Inside, plans were being made, strategies developed, resources mobilized. The war for Elena's life, for their daughter's future, for their chance at happiness together, was entering its final phase. And when the sun rose on this long, terrible night, one way or another, everything would be different. Ivan's team arrived with the efficiency of a military operation, black SUVs rolling up the gravel drive with their lights off despite the darkness. Within minutes, the property was swarming with Adrian's people. Medics treating wounds, tactical specialists securing the perimeter, and what Elena could only describe as cleaners, making the evidence of the firefight disappear with practiced ease. A paramedic approached Adrian, medical kit in hand. Mr. Volkov, I need to treat that wound before infection sets in. Adrian waved him toward the injured intruders first. Deal with the prisoners. Make sure they're stable enough for questioning. I'll wait. Sir, you're bleeding, and I'll continue bleeding for another 10 minutes while you do your job. Adrian's tone left no room for argument. The prisoners are our only connection to Victor's operation. Keep them alive. The paramedic nodded and moved toward the restrained men. Elena watched Adrian's jaw tighten with pain as he shifted position, saw the way he pressed his hand more firmly against his side. He was putting on a show of strength for his people, refusing to acknowledge weakness even when he was clearly hurting. She crossed to him and took his free hand, threading her fingers through his. You don't have to pretend with me. I know it hurts. It's manageable. But he didn't pull away from her touch, didn't reject the comfort she was offering. I've had worse, Elena. This is nothing compared to some of the injuries I've survived. That doesn't make it nothing. She studied his face, the tight lines around his eyes, the pallor beneath his tan. When was the last time you ate? Or slept? Yesterday. Maybe the day before. Adrian's smile was rueful. Time loses meaning when you're hunting for someone who disappeared. I spent 10 months barely sleeping, barely eating, just searching. Old habits die hard. Ivan approached, tablet in hand, his expression grim. Boss, we've got a problem. The warehouse address our prisoner gave us? It's clean, completely empty. If Victor was ever there, he's long gone now. Adrian's expression darkened. He's moving locations, covering his tracks. He knows we're coming for him. There's more. We ran financial traces on Victor's known accounts. He's been liquidating assets for the past 3 months, selling properties, moving money offshore, preparing to disappear. Ivan scrolled through data on his tablet. This isn't just about eliminating you, boss. He's planning to take over your empire and then vanish with the profits. How much has he moved? Conservatively? 50 million, maybe more. He's been skimming from your operations for months, maybe longer. Small amounts that wouldn't trigger alerts, but it adds up. Dmitri, who'd been sitting quietly nearby, suddenly stood. Wait, the messages. Victor sent me instructions through encrypted messages, but there was a pattern. Specific times, specific phrases. If I can access my phone, maybe I can predict when the next communication will come through. Adrian gestured to Marcus, who retrieved Dimitri's phone from the evidence bag where it had been stored. Dimitri's fingers flew across the screen, pulling up message histories, timestamps, patterns Elena couldn't begin to decipher. "Here," Dimitri said, his voice rising with desperate hope. Every communication came through at exactly 7-hour intervals, like clockwork. The last message was at 8 p.m., which means the next one should come through at 3 in the morning. Adrian checked his watch. That's 45 minutes from now. If we respond correctly, we might be able to trace the signal, find out where Victor's operating from. Or he might realize we've turned Dimitri and cut off communication completely, Ivan countered. If we tip our hand too early, we don't have time to wait for the perfect moment. Adrian's voice was hard with determination. Every hour we delay is another hour Anna stays in danger. Another hour Victor has to plan his next move. We respond to that message, we trace the signal, and we move immediately. Elena felt Sophia Grace kick hard against her ribs, as if the baby could sense the tension crackling through the room. She placed both hands on her belly, trying to calm the restless movements. Adrian noticed immediately. "Elena, you need to rest. You've been through too much stress tonight. I'm fine, the baby's fine, we're both fine." But even as she said it, another sharp kick made her wince. "Okay, maybe not completely fine, but I'm not leaving while you're planning something dangerous. You don't have a choice in this. When we move on Victor's location, you're staying here with Sophia and a security detail. Non-negotiable." "Adrian, non-negotiable, Elena." His voice was gentle but absolutely firm. "I can't focus on ending this threat if I'm worried about you being in the line of fire. I need to know you're safe. Can you give me that? Can you let me do what needs to be done without having to protect you at the same time?" Elena wanted to argue, wanted to insist that she deserved to be part of finishing this. But the baby kicked again, harder, and she thought about the tiny life depending on her to make smart choices. Charging into a confrontation with a man who wanted her dead wasn't a smart choice. "Okay," she said finally. "But you promise me something. You come back. You don't take unnecessary risks. You don't let your anger make you reckless. You come back to us, Adrian. Promise me." "I promise." He lifted her hand to his lips, pressed a kiss to her knuckles. "I didn't wait 10 months to find you again just to get myself killed. I'm coming back, and when I do, this nightmare will be over." The paramedic approached again, more insistent this time. "Mr. Volkov, I really need to treat that wound. You're still bleeding, and if you're planning any kind of physical activity, fine." Adrian released Elena's hand reluctantly. "Do what you need to do, but make it quick." The paramedic worked with efficient speed, cleaning the wound, applying antiseptic that made Adrian's jaw clench despite his attempt to hide the pain, and finally closing the gash with neat sutures. Throughout it all, Adrian's eyes stayed on the tablet where Ivan was setting up tracking software, his mind clearly on strategy rather than the needle piercing his skin. "You're lucky," the paramedic said as he bandaged the wound. "Another inch to the right, and that bullet would have hit your liver. You'd be bleeding out right now instead of planning whatever military operation you're planning." Luck had nothing to do with it. I saw the shooter, adjusted my position at the last second. If I'd stayed still, I'd be dead. The paramedic shook his head, gathering his supplies. "Keep the wound clean and dry. Change the bandage twice a day. And for the love of everything, don't do anything that might tear the sutures." Adrian stood, testing his range of motion. Elena saw him suppress a grimace as the movement pulled at the fresh stitches. "I'll do my best?" "That's what you said last time I stitched you up, and you came back 2 days later with the wound reopened." The paramedic's tone was resigned. "At least try to remember you're not invincible." Dimitri's phone chimed suddenly, cutting through the conversation. Everyone in the room went still, eyes turning to the device in his hands. "It's here," Dimitri said, his voice shaking. "The message. Right on schedule." Adrian crossed to him in 2 strides. "What does it say?" Dimitri read aloud, his voice breaking. "Time's running out for your little Anna. Tell Volkov that family means everything. He should understand that better than anyone. Deliver Elena Volkov to the old Riverside warehouse by dawn, or the girl dies. Come alone. Tell no one. You know what happens if he refuses." The room erupted with overlapping voices, people talking over each other, strategizing, arguing. Adrian silenced them with a single raised hand. "Ivan, start the trace. I want to know where that message originated from within the next 2 minutes. Marcus, Pull up satellite imagery of the Riverside warehouse and every building within a 5-block radius. Yuri, assemble a tactical team, light weapons, non-lethal options preferred. We're extracting a child, not starting a war. You're not seriously considering delivering Elena, Ivan said, though it came out more like a statement than a question. Of course not. But Victor expects me to refuse, expects me to come in with overwhelming force. So we're going to give him the opposite. Adrian's mind was clearly working several steps ahead, calculating angles and possibilities. We're going to make him think he's won. Elena's stomach dropped. Adrian, what are you planning? A trade. Except the person walking into that warehouse won't be you. It will be Detective Morrison in tactical gear. Same height, same build, disguised well enough to pass at a distance. Victor wants a trade? We'll give him one, just not the trade he's expecting. Detective Morrison, who'd stayed quiet through most of the night's chaos, stepped forward. I'm willing to do it. If it saves the kid and ends this threat, I'm in. You'd be walking into extreme danger, Adrian warned. Victor won't go down without a fight. There's a very real chance you could be hurt or killed. I've been a cop for 20 years. Danger comes with the job. Morrison's expression was determined. Besides, I owe you for keeping my pension fund flush all these years. Time to earn that money. Ivan looked up from his laptop, his expression triumphant. Got it. The message originated from a cell tower on the East Side Industrial District. I've narrowed it down to a 3-block radius. Cross-referencing with properties owned by Victor or his shell companies, he paused, fingers flying across the keyboard. There. The old Hutchinson factory. Abandoned for 5 years, purchased by a holding company 6 months ago. That holding company traces back to Victor. That's where he's keeping Anna. Dmitri was on his feet, desperate hope in his eyes. That has to be it. We need to go now, before he moves her again. We go in smart, not fast. Adrian was already moving toward the weapons cache Ivan's team had brought in. We have 3 hours until dawn. That's 3 hours to plan, prepare, and position our people. Victor thinks he has the advantage. We're going to prove him wrong. The next 2 hours passed in a blur of preparation. Elena watched from the sofa as Adrian's operation took shape with military precision. Maps were studied, equipment distributed, communication protocols established. Sophia brought her tea and food that Elena barely tasted, her attention fixed on the controlled chaos unfolding around her. Detective Morrison was fitted with tactical gear and a wire, her hair styled to match Elena's, her face partially obscured by a hood. From a distance, in dim light, the resemblance was close enough to work. Adrian moved through the preparations with focused intensity, checking weapons, reviewing strategy, talking through contingencies with his team. The wound in his side didn't slow him down, though Elena noticed him favor his right side when he thought no one was looking. You should eat something, Sophia said quietly, pressing a sandwich into Elena's hands. The baby needs fuel, even if you don't feel like eating. Elena forced herself to take a bite, chewing mechanically. How do you live like this? How do you watch Marcus go into danger and not lose your mind with worry? You learn to trust. Trust in his training, his instincts, his will to survive and come home to you. Sophia's smile was sad. And you learn to accept that some things are beyond your control. I can't keep Marcus safe by worrying. All I can do is make sure he has reasons to fight hard to come back. Does it get easier? No, but you get stronger. You learn to carry the fear instead of letting it carry you. Adrian appeared at Elena's side, dressed in tactical black, a vest strapped over his chest. He looked dangerous and capable and absolutely determined. It's time. We're moving out. Elena stood, her hands finding his. You promised to come back. And I will. He pulled her close, careful of his injury, one hand cradling the back of her head. I love you, Elena. I've loved you since the moment I met you, and I'll love you until the moment I die. But that moment isn't today. I'm coming home to you and our daughter. Count on it. He kissed her then, deep and thorough and full of promise. When he pulled back, his eyes were bright with emotion he rarely let show. Stay here. Stay safe. And when I come back, we're going to destroy those divorce papers and start over. Really start over, without secrets or threats or fear. Just us and Sophia Grace and the life we're going to build together. Deal? Deal, Elena whispered. Adrian released her and turned to his team. Move out. Elena watched through the windows as vehicles rolled down the drive, carrying Adrian and his people toward the confrontation that would end this nightmare one way or another. Sophia stood beside her, one hand on Elena's shoulder, offering silent support. Now we wait, Sophia said quietly. Now we wait, Elena echoed. The next hour was the longest of Elena's life. She paced the living room despite Sophia's gentle suggestions that she rest. She couldn't rest, couldn't sit still, couldn't do anything but imagine all the ways this could go wrong. Adrian injured or killed, Anna hurt or worse, the plan falling apart, Victor escaping, the threat continuing indefinitely. Sophia Grace kicked almost constantly now, feeding off Elena's anxiety. Elena talked to her daughter, describing the future they'd have once this was over. A real home, somewhere safe. Parents who loved each other and loved her. A life free from the violence that had defined the past 10 months, if they survived tonight. Elena's phone buzzed suddenly, making her jump. A text from Adrian, short and direct. In position? Radio silence from here. I love you. She typed back quickly. I love you too. Be safe. Then there was nothing to do but wait and pray and hope that Adrian's plan would work. Miles away, in the pre-dawn darkness, Adrian crouched behind a rusted dumpster outside the Hutchinson factory. His team was positioned around the perimeter, Yuri on the north side, Ivan on the south, Marcus providing overwatch from a rooftop across the street. Detective Morrison waited in an unmarked van 2 blocks away, ready to play her part when the time came. Adrian's side throbbed where the bullet had grazed him, each breath pulling at the fresh sutures. He ignored the pain with practiced ease. Pain was temporary, failure was permanent, and he would not fail Elena or Anna or himself. His earpiece crackled with Marcus's voice. I've got eyes on 2 guards at the main entrance, 3 more patrolling the perimeter. Thermal imaging shows approximately 8 heat signatures inside the building, probably Victor and his remaining people. Any sign of the girl? Adrian asked quietly. 2nd floor, northeast corner, small heat signature, stationary. Could be Anna. Could be. Not definitely, but it was the best lead they had. Dmitri, you're up, Adrian said. Make the call. Tell Victor you're bringing Elena as requested. Dmitri's voice came through the earpiece, tight with fear. Victor, it's Dmitri. I have her. Elena Volkov. I'm bringing her to the warehouse as you requested. I'm coming alone, no backup, just like you said. Please, just let me see Anna. Let me know she's okay. A pause. Then Victor's voice, smooth and cultured and absolutely cold. Bring her to the main entrance. You have 5 minutes. If I see anyone else, if I suspect any kind of trick, the girl dies. Understand? I understand. The connection ended. Adrian signaled to his team. Morrison, you're on. Remember, you're terrified, pregnant, desperate. Sell it. Copy that. Adrian watched through binoculars as the unmarked van approached the warehouse. Morrison emerged, her movements carefully crafted to mimic Elena's pregnant waddle. Dmitri was beside her, his hand on her arm, guiding her toward the entrance. The warehouse doors opened, light spilled out, silhouetting 2 figures. One was Victor Volkov, tall and distinguished despite his 60 years, his silver hair perfectly styled even at this ungodly hour. The other was a guard with a weapon trained on Morrison. Close enough, Victor called. Send her forward, alone. Dmitri released Morrison's arm. She walked slowly toward the warehouse, her hands raised in surrender. Adrian held his breath, watching for any sign that Victor had seen through the deception. Victor grabbed Morrison's arm when she got close enough, pulling her into the light. For one terrible moment, Adrian thought the plan had failed. Then Victor laughed, the sound bitter and triumphant. Did you really think I wouldn't recognize the difference between my nephew's wife and a police detective in disguise? Victor's voice carried clearly in the quiet night. I've been watching you for months, Adrian. I know everything, every move you make, every person you trust. Did you honestly believe you could fool me? Adrian cursed silently. The plan had failed before it had even begun. Come out, Adrian, Victor called. I know you're out there. Come out and face me like a man, or I put a bullet in Detective Morrison's head and then I go hunting for your real wife. Adrian stood slowly, hands visible, no weapon drawn. He walked toward the warehouse entrance with measured steps, his mind racing through options and alternatives. There's my nephew. The great Adrian Volkov finally admitting defeat. Victor's smile was cruel. You should have stayed small, boy. Should have been content with the territories I gave you. But you had to build an empire, had to become more powerful than your old uncle. And now look where that ambition has gotten you. You kidnapped an 8-year-old girl. You threatened my pregnant wife. You sent assassins to my home. Adrian's voice was ice cold. This isn't about ambition, Victor. This is about you being a jealous old man who can't stand that I've surpassed you. Surpassed me? Victor laughed. Boy, I taught you everything you know, every strategy, every manipulation, every ruthless decision. I showed you how it was done. And you used those lessons to build something I could never achieve. Yes, I'm jealous. Yes, I want what you have. And yes, I'm willing to destroy everything you love to take it from you. Where's Anna? The girl is safe, for now. She's leverage, insurance that you'll do exactly what I tell you to do. Which is what? Walk away. Sign over control of your organization to me. Disappear with your wife and child, and never come back. Do that, and Anna goes free. Do that, and Elena survives to raise your daughter. Refuse. Victor pressed the gun to Morrison's head, and everyone you care about dies. Adrian's mind worked through possibilities at lightning speed. Victor had the advantage of position and hostages, but he also had weaknesses. He was older, slower. He was arrogant, convinced of his superiority, and most importantly, he'd brought his people into a kill box without realizing it. All right, Adrian said, his voice heavy with false defeat. You win. I'll sign over everything. Just let Anna go. Let Detective Morrison go. End this. You expect me to believe you'd give up everything without a fight? I expect you to believe I'll do anything to protect my family, including surrender. Adrian took another step forward. You were right, Victor. I learned from you. And the most important lesson you taught me was that sometimes survival means knowing when to fold. Victor studied him, searching for deception. Hands where I can see them. Move slowly. Adrian complied, walking toward the warehouse entrance with his hands raised. With each step, he was mentally tracking his team's positions, calculating angles and distances. Marcus had a clear shot from the rooftop. Yuri was in position to breach from the north, even was ready to cut the power on Adrian's signal. He just needed to get close enough. 10 feet from the entrance, Victor was still using Morrison as a shield, the gun pressed to her temple. Behind them, inside the warehouse, Adrian could see shadows moving. More guards, more weapons, more obstacles. 5 feet. Adrian could see the sweat on Victor's forehead, the slight tremor in his gun hand. His uncle was nervous, despite his bravado. Good. Nervous people made mistakes. 3 feet. Close enough. Adrian moved. He was fast, faster than a man with a bullet wound in his side had any right to be. His hand shot out, deflecting Victor's gun upward as it fired. The shot went wild, the sound deafening in the enclosed space. Morrison dropped and rolled away, clearing the line of fire. Victor stumbled back, shock on his face. Adrian pressed his advantage, closing the distance, using his superior size and strength to drive his uncle against the warehouse wall. Now! Adrian shouted into his radio. The lights went out as Ivan cut the power. In the sudden darkness, chaos erupted. Adrian heard the crack of Marcus's rifle from the rooftop, taking out guards with precision shots. Heard Yuri's team breaching from the north entrance, their tactical lights cutting through the darkness like knives. Victor fought like a cornered animal, all pretense of sophistication gone. He was strong for his age, trained in the same brutal methods he'd taught Adrian, but he was 60 years old and Adrian was in his prime. The fight was vicious and short. Adrian disarmed Victor with a brutal twist that left his uncle's wrist broken, sent him to the ground with a leg sweep, and pinned him there with a knee to his chest. It's over, Adrian said, breathing hard. Tell me where Anna is, and maybe I let you survive this. Second floor, Victor gasped, his face twisted with pain and fury. Northeast corner. She's locked in the old office. The key is in my pocket. Adrian retrieved the key, tossed it to Yuri. Get her out. Get her to safety. Now. Yuri disappeared into the darkness, his tactical light bobbing as he climbed stairs. Adrian maintained pressure on Victor's chest, keeping him pinned, watching as his team secured the warehouse and rounded up Victor's remaining people. The whole operation, from the moment Adrian moved to the moment Victor was secured, had taken less than 3 minutes. Morrison appeared at Adrian's side, her disguise disheveled, but her expression triumphant. "Nice work, Volkov. Remind me never to play poker with you." "Remind me to pay you a substantial bonus for playing bait." Adrian hauled Victor to his feet, ignoring the older man's groan of pain. "You're done, Victor. Your people are captured or dead. Your assets will be seized. Your empire, such as it was, is finished. You think this ends anything?" Victor's laugh was bitter. "I'm not the only one who sees you as weak, Adrian. I'm just the only one who had the courage to act on it. Others will come. Others will see your wife and child as vulnerabilities to exploit. You'll never be safe. Then I'll deal with them the same way I dealt with you. But they'll have the advantage of learning from your mistakes. They'll know what happens when someone threatens my family." Yuri's voice crackled through the radio. "Boss, I've got her. Anna's safe. She's scared and dehydrated, but she's alive." Relief washed through Adrian so powerfully it nearly buckled his knees. "Bring her down. Get her to medical immediately." Minutes later, Yuri emerged carrying a small girl wrapped in a blanket. She was crying, her face streaked with dirt and tears, her small body shaking with sobs. But she was alive. Dmitri appeared from wherever he'd taken cover during the firefight, saw his daughter, and broke down completely. He ran to them, taking Anna from Yuri's arms. Holding her so tightly, Adrian thought he might hurt her. But the girl just clung to her father, both of them crying, both of them safe. "Thank you," Dmitri sobbed, looking at Adrian over Anna's head. "Thank you. I know I don't deserve your mercy. I know I betrayed you, but thank you for saving her." "Take her home," Adrian said quietly. "Get her checked by doctors. Make sure she's really okay, and then disappear for a while. Take Anna somewhere safe and quiet, and far from this world. I'll make sure you have the resources to start over somewhere else." "You're letting me go? After everything I did?" "You were protecting your daughter. I understand that now more than I did before." Adrian glanced at Victor, who was being restrained by two of Yuri's people. "Go, before I change my mind." Dmitri didn't need to be told twice. He carried Anna toward the waiting vehicles, already talking to her in soothing tones, promising her that everything would be okay now. Adrian turned his attention back to Victor. "You have one chance to make this easier on yourself. Tell me if there are any other threats, any other pieces of your plan that are still active. Help me clean up your mess, and I'll make sure you end up in a comfortable prison instead of a shallow grave." Victor spat at his feet. "I'll tell you nothing. And when I get out, you won't get out. I'll make sure of that." Adrian's voice was flat, emotionless. "You're going to disappear into the system, Victor, into a black site where people don't ask questions about prisoners who never officially existed. You'll spend the rest of your life in a cell, thinking about how you threw everything away because you couldn't stand seeing me succeed." He gestured to Yuri. "Get him out of my sight, and make sure the people holding him understand that he doesn't get privileges, doesn't get phone calls, doesn't get anything except time to regret his choices." As Victor was dragged away, still cursing and threatening, Adrian felt the adrenaline begin to fade. The pain in his side, which he'd been ignoring through sheer force of will, came roaring back with a vengeance. He stumbled slightly, and Marcus was there immediately, supporting him. "You're bleeding through your bandages, boss. We need to get you to medical." "I need to get home to Elena first." Adrian pulled out his phone, typed a quick message. "It's over. Coming home. Everyone's safe. I love you." The response came back almost immediately. "Thank God. Hurry home." The drive back to the safe house felt longer than the operation itself. Adrian sat in the passenger seat while Ivan drove, Marcus in the back keeping pressure on the wound that had indeed started bleeding again. The sutures had held, but the exertion of fighting Victor had stressed them. "You're lucky you didn't tear them completely," Marcus said. "Though I suppose luck is relative when you just took down your own uncle." "It wasn't luck. It was necessity." Adrian stared out the window at the lightening sky. Dawn was breaking, painting the horizon in shades of pink and gold. Victor was right about one thing. There will be others who see Elena and Sophia Grace as vulnerabilities, people who think they can use them against me. "So what are you going to do?" Ivan asked. "Change the game." Adrian's voice was quiet but determined. "I'm done building an empire on fear and violence. I'm done making enemies who think hurting my family is an acceptable strategy. I'm walking away from all of it. Both men stared at him in shock. Boss, you can't be serious, Marcus said. This organization is your life's work. You can't just walk away. Watch me. Adrian's smile was grim. I have offshore accounts Victor didn't know about, legitimate businesses that generate real income, enough money to support my family for generations. I don't need the criminal empire anymore. And more importantly, Elena and our daughter don't need the danger that comes with it. What about everyone who depends on you? Your people? Your territories? I'll transition it. Sell it off piece by piece to people who can run it without the baggage I've accumulated. Set up my loyal people with severance packages and recommendations. Make sure everyone who stood by me is taken care of. Adrian looked at both of them seriously, including you two. I'll make sure you're set for life, whatever you choose to do next. I don't want your money, boss. I want to know you're serious about this. Marcus leaned forward. Because if you're doing this just to make Elena happy, if you're going to resent her for making you give up your power, then you're making a mistake that will destroy your marriage. I'm not doing it for Elena. I'm doing it for me. Adrian's voice was soft. I spent 10 months searching for her, 10 months living in a world where the only thing that mattered was finding her again. And you know what I realized? The empire, the power, the respect and fear I've built. None of it meant anything without her. None of it was worth the cost of losing her. They pulled up to the safe house as the sun crested the horizon, bathing the property in golden light. Elena was standing on the front porch, Sophia beside her, both of them watching the driveway with anxious expressions. When she saw Adrian emerge from the vehicle, alive, upright, walking toward her, Elena's face crumpled with relief. She moved as quickly as her pregnant body would allow, meeting him halfway. Adrian caught her in his arms, ignoring the protest from his injured side. She was crying and laughing at the same time, her hands touching his face as if confirming he was real. You came back. You actually came back. I promised, didn't I? He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, finally her mouth. It's over, Elena. Victor's in custody. Anna's safe with her father. The threat is gone. And you're bleeding through your bandages again. Minor detail. Adrian Volkov, you are the most stubborn, reckless, wonderful man I've ever met. Elena's hands found the edges of his tactical vest. Get inside so we can fix you up properly, and then you're going to sleep for 12 hours straight while I watch over you. I have a better idea. Adrian took her hand, threading his fingers through hers. How about we go inside, you burn those divorce papers, and we start planning our future? A real future, without threats or danger or fear. Elena searched his face. What are you saying? I'm saying I'm done with this life. Done with the criminal empire, the violence, all of it. I'm walking away, Elena. For you, for Sophia Grace, but mostly for me. Because I finally understand that the power I've spent my life building isn't worth anything if it costs me my family. You're serious. You're actually serious. Completely serious. I've got enough legitimate business interests to support us comfortably. We can go anywhere you want, live however you want. I'll be whoever you need me to be as long as I get to be Sophia Grace's father and your husband. Elena's tears were flowing freely now. What about your people? Your organization? I'll take care of them. Make sure everyone who's been loyal gets taken care of. But I'm done, Elena. I'm choosing us over everything else. She kissed him then, deep and desperate and full of all the emotion she'd been holding back for 10 months. When she finally pulled away, her smile was radiant. Then, yes, let's burn those divorce papers. Let's start over. Let's build something real together. Sophia appeared with the manila envelope Elena had brought to Adrian's office what felt like a lifetime ago. She handed it to Elena with a knowing smile. I believe you'll be needing this for the fire. Elena took the envelope, pulled out the divorce papers, and walked to the fireplace where the morning fire was already burning. She held the papers over the flames for a moment, looking at Adrian. Last chance to change your mind. Not a chance? Adrian moved to stand beside her. I've never been more certain of anything in my life. Together they dropped the papers into the fire. They watched them catch, curl, and burn to ash. The end of one chapter and the beginning of another, written in smoke and flame and absolute certainty. 2 months later, Elena lay in a hospital bed, exhausted and euphoric, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in pink. Sophia Grace Volkov had arrived 3 weeks early, impatient to meet the world. She was perfect: 10 fingers, 10 toes, Adrian's dark eyes, and Elena's nose, and a set of lungs that announced her displeasure with being evicted from her comfortable womb. Adrian sat beside the bed, unable to take his eyes off his daughter. He'd been present for the delivery, had held Elena's hand through every contraction, had cried when he heard Sophia Grace's first cry. Now he reached out with one finger, letting his daughter's tiny hand curl around it with surprising strength. "She's beautiful," he whispered. "She's perfect. How did we make something this perfect? Luck? Genetics? Stubbornness?" Elena's smile was tired but radiant. "She definitely has your determination. She refused to wait until her due date. She gets that from both of us." Adrian leaned down, pressed a kiss to Elena's forehead. "Thank you for giving me this, for giving us another chance, for fighting for our family when it would have been easier to run. Thank you for proving you could change, for walking away from everything you'd built, for choosing us." Elena adjusted Sophia Grace in her arms, the baby settling into sleep with the absolute trust of the very young. "Have you heard from Dmitri?" "He and Anna are settled in Portland. He's working as an accountant for a legitimate firm, and Anna's in counseling but doing well. They're building a new life, one day at a time." "And Victor?" "Where he can't hurt anyone ever again. That's all you need to know." Adrian's expression darkened briefly, then cleared as he looked at his daughter. "The past is past, Elena. We're looking forward now." Elena's parents arrived then, having flown in from their home upstate. Her mother cried over her new granddaughter while her father shook Adrian's hand with grudging respect. They'd never approved of Elena's marriage to a man they knew was involved in criminal activity, but Adrian's decision to walk away had earned him a measure of their trust. Over the next few days, as Elena recovered and learned to navigate the overwhelming reality of new motherhood, Adrian proved himself in 1,000 small ways. He changed diapers without complaint, walked the halls with a crying baby at 3 in the morning, and looked at Elena like she'd hung the moon every time she successfully got Sophia Grace to latch for feeding. When they finally brought Sophia Grace home, not to the safe house, but to a beautiful property in the countryside that Adrian had purchased under his new legitimate business name, it felt like the beginning of something unprecedented. A family built on love instead of power, on trust instead of fear, on the absolute certainty that they'd fight for each other no matter what challenges came their way. 6 months later, on a warm spring afternoon, Adrian and Elena stood in their backyard surrounded by a small group of friends and family. Sophia was there with Marcus, who'd chosen to retire with Adrian and now managed their legitimate security consulting business. Detective Morrison, who'd been invited out of gratitude for her role in ending Victor's threat. Dmitri and Anna, who'd made the trip from Portland for the occasion. Elena wore a simple white dress that complemented her post-pregnancy curves, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked radiant and happy, and absolutely certain as she looked at the man standing across from her. Adrian wore a dark suit without the tactical vest or concealed weapons that had once been his constant companions. He looked at Elena like she was his entire world, because she was. She and Sophia Grace, who slept peacefully in Sophia's arms nearby, were everything that mattered. The officiant, a kind-faced woman who knew nothing about their complicated past, smiled at them both. Marriage is a journey of choosing each other every day, through joy and hardship. It's about building a partnership based on trust, respect, and love. Elena and Adrian have already walked a difficult path together. Today, they're choosing to continue that journey, this time with full knowledge of who they are and what they want their future to be. She looked at Adrian. "Do you take Elena to be your wife, to love and cherish, to stand beside in good times and bad, to build a life based on honesty and partnership?" "I do." Adrian's voice was steady, his eyes never leaving Elena's face. "I've chosen her every day since the moment I met her, but today I'm choosing her freely, completely, with full knowledge of what that choice means. I choose her strength, her compassion, her absolute refusal to let me settle for less than I could be. I choose our family, our future, and the life we're going to build together." The officiant turned to Elena. "And do you take Adrian to be your husband, to love and cherish, to stand beside in good times and bad, to build a life based on honesty and partnership?" "I do." Elena's voice trembled with emotion. "I choose the man who fought for me when I ran, who changed everything about his life to give us a chance at happiness, who holds our daughter like she's made of spun glass and looks at me like I'm a miracle. I choose the man he is now and the man he's still becoming. I choose us, Adrian. Every time, in every way that matters, I choose us. Adrian slipped a ring onto Elena's finger, not the one she'd worn during their first marriage, but a new one they'd chosen together. Simple, elegant, symbolizing a fresh start. Elena did the same for him, her hands steady despite the tears streaming down her face. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Again. The officiant's smile was warm. You may kiss your bride. Again. Adrian pulled Elena close and kissed her thoroughly, pouring into that kiss all the love and gratitude and absolute certainty that this was right. That they were right. That everything they'd been through had led them to this moment, standing in sunshine with their daughter nearby and their future stretching out bright and limitless before them. When they finally broke apart, their small gathering erupted in applause. Sophia Grace woke up and added her voice to the celebration, her cry breaking the solemnity of the moment and making everyone laugh. Adrian took his daughter from Sophia, cradling her against his chest with practiced ease. Sorry, sweetheart. Did we wake you with all the mushy stuff? Sophia Grace looked up at her father with dark eyes so like his own and made a sound that might have been approval or might have been hunger. It didn't matter. She was perfect, and she was theirs. And she would grow up in a world where her parents loved each other and chose each other and fought for their family above everything else. Welcome to the family, Elena said, wrapping one arm around Adrian's waist and placing her other hand on Sophia Grace's tiny back. All of us, together. Finally. Finally, Adrian echoed. As the sun set on their wedding day, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, the Volkov family, newly reformed, newly committed, newly hopeful, stood together and looked toward a future that held no guarantees except the promise they'd made to each other. To choose love over fear, family over power, and each other over everything else the world might offer. It wasn't the ending Elena had imagined when she'd walked into Adrian's office with divorce papers. It wasn't the future Adrian had planned when he'd built his empire on violence and control. It was better. It was real. And it was theirs.